All right, Tolos, take two on this thing. Things are starting to work again in the Fan Upstate studios. Again, my sincerest apologies for the rough start to the show from a technical standpoint. You could say, Cole, it's always a rough start with you behind that thing. I don't know, man. I'm telling you, it was weird. Let's see. We are going to give this a take two. Tolos, take two. Ready? Action on this Wednesday. Let's pretend like that didn't happen. Again, it looks, knock on wood, as if things may be working right now. And our engineering's still working, doing a good job. Shout out to them. But I believe, again, let's not get premature. I believe we might be okay. JD says we're good on the stream now. JD, appreciate you for letting me know of the audio issues. And who was it? Jersey Joe as well. Tolos. It's all fine and dandy until you go to hit the button that starts the show normally and the button doesn't work, right? But guess what? We're good. We're back. I'm back. Cole Bryson. I say we. There's no we this week. Diesel's on vacation, so we're going to take two on this thing. I was trying to get into Greg Sankey in the first segment. I had engineers in here trying to fix stuff while I was on the air. I couldn't really focus. And then also I have Clemson Regional stuff on the rundown. We have an interview that I did at the very end of the show yesterday with Nick Mingione, the Kentucky baseball coach. Tolos that are in the stream on the text line, where do you want to go? Since the show was off the rails to start, what topic do you want to hit first? You want to hear from the Kentucky baseball coach, Nick Mingione? You want to dive into Clemson Regional? You want to go back into Greg Sankey? You tell me. The show, I believe, is back on the rails. Welcome in to Wire to Wire. Sorry for that rough start. Better for a rough start than a rough landing, I guess, right? If you're on an airplane. But the phone lines are open. I guess they're working. Text line's working. I've gotten several texts already at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. It's the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. That's where we're going. JD says he's already heard the Kentucky coach twice. I don't know how you've heard the Kentucky coach twice. He was only on once yesterday at the very end of the show. So how did you hear him twice? Did you go back on the Odyssey app and hear him that way? We didn't have him on until the very end of the show yesterday. By the way, he was really, really good. He was really good, the Kentucky coach, Nick Mingione, previewing the Clemson Regional. It was really, really good stuff. Dewey says Rob Brown should be fired for breaking your equipment. Yeah, Dewey, I'm gonna blame this entire start on Rob Brown when he comes on the show. He's joining me on the show today for about an hour, a whole hour, 5 to 6 p.m. Rob Brown takeover right here on the Fan Upstate. So when we have Rob on at 5, we'll blame the rough start on him. Texter says commercials are good to go on radio, just FYI. Yes, Texter, I believe we're good. Let's see if we can get this thing in the air and keep on flying on this Wednesday. A much prettier Wednesday, by the way, here in the Upstate than yesterday. A little bit warmer. A little bit bluer skies. The sun's peeked out a few times, so good to be with you on this Wednesday. Let's hear from Nick Mingione. This was really good stuff. Nick Mingione, the Kentucky baseball coach, he literally joined me in the very last segment yesterday on the show, so most of you have not heard it. Nick Mingione previewing the Clemson Baseball Regional this weekend. Continuing the college baseball conversation as we have since 3 p.m. today. You've heard from Kane Sweeney, the head baseball coach at USC Upstate. Now it's time to continue the conversation with Nick Mingione of Kentucky baseball. Coach, always appreciate you taking time to do some media interviews. I've got to ask, how many times do you get asked how to pronounce Mingione? You can count mine during the break as one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, quite a bit. Obviously, with a last name like that, I have an appreciation for last names, but quite a bit. And
is it Italian, Coach? Is that Italian?
Italian. Come on, you know it. I am.
Man.
I'm Italian. You got it.
I know this is important stuff here. We had another guest on a couple of weeks ago, Italian as well, and we were laughing about the clip of I believe it was the Louisville basketball or the St. John's coach ranking the top 5 Italian foods. Patino, what is your number one Italian dish? What is your number one Italian dish?
I love me some chicken cutlet parmesan. It's kind of hard to not take down some of that. But and I also don't know if you qualify pizza as Italian, but I love me some pizza.
And the South, in South Carolina, we'll classify it as whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want it to be. Coach, obviously a big weekend for Kentucky baseball. You guys will be making your trip down here to our neck of the woods. We'll see you this weekend in the Clemson Regional. Just first question for you. What was your and your team reaction when you saw where you were headed for the college baseball postseason?
I would tell you that our team actually celebrated like I hadn't seen them celebrate. And it wasn't because we were going to Clemson. It was because they were in the tournament. Anytime you put your season in the hands of other people in a committee, we didn't know how it was going to go. And the whole time we believed we were worthy of being an NCAA tournament, but sometimes beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And so to watch our team celebrate, and it's my understanding, I wasn't even tracking it this closely, but they were. That was really the last regional that we had a chance to go to because the next two were SEC teams, and we weren't going to go there. So that was our last hope. So it was less about where we were going, but the fact that we were going.
Yeah, absolutely. We're joined right now by Nick Mingione, the head baseball coach of the Kentucky Wildcats, as he gets his team ready for the Clemson Regional right here in the Upstate this weekend. You mentioned that's a fascinating point, Coach. What was your message to your team, in the meanwhile, while you didn't know if you were going to be selected or not?
We always believed we were worthy, and we deserved it. So, but you can just, in the room, you could feel the tension in the room as the picks and the teams were being displayed. But I give our team credit. We've had a great week of practice. Even, we got home from the SEC tournament, and they continue to go to work like they have all year long. And but I would tell you that the last 2 days there's been a freedom to them that has been a good thing.
Coach, absolutely understand that. Let me ask you this. When you talk about this season, the ups, the downs, the good times, the bad times that Kentucky baseball has had as you now approach the Clemson Regional this weekend, what was it that you point your finger to that you attribute the lack of success to when you guys weren't playing your best baseball that you tried to correct heading into this weekend?
Well, I can tell you this, we've really been in just about every game. And when you go back and you look and do your homework and look at the schedule, it's wow, the amount of 1- and 2-run games. I mean, I think it's, 19 1- or 2-run losses. I mean, we have been in just about every single fight. So what I boil it all down to, when we win and when we lose, it's all the same. It comes down to the same thing, and that's our ability to execute what we're trying to do. And when we do that, we've had tremendous success. And when we haven't, we've been close. But it's always coming down to a pitch, a play, or an at-bat here or there. But our ability to execute is the key for us.
11 of your 17 SEC losses by either 1 or 2 runs. So to your point, a large majority of them, Coach, as I was just looking that up during your answer there. What is it about these matchups that you could potentially have? Obviously, you guys in the early slot against West Virginia and then Clemson and Upstate Friday night. What is it about these matchups that you and your coaching staff are trying to game plan for?
Well, I can tell you this, and you know this. This is the time of year where literally these are the best teams in the country. These are the best teams that are left. So it's the 64 best teams in the country. And it comes down to each team's ability to really, as quite simply as possible, our ability to pitch, defend, and to be able to have timely hitting. If you do those things, I don't care when it is. Last year, we were SEC champions, and we made it to the College World Series for the first time in school history. And we pitched, we defend, and we had timely hitting. And when you're able to do those things, especially in the postseason, things are going to go your way. And I hate to sound over simple, but really it does come down to those 3 phases of the game.
Yeah, without a doubt. As we're joined right here on the Fan Upstate, talking a little college baseball by Nick Mingione, the head baseball coach of the Kentucky Wildcats. You mentioned earlier in the interview the way that you guys had to kind of put your fate of the postseason into the committee's hands. Now that you're in the postseason, you mentioned that loose feeling. What is that loose feeling in your experience coaching baseball? What does that freedom do for, or potentially do for your players?
Yeah, that's one thing I'll give this team a lot of credit for is our ability to persevere through a season where it's been good times, there's been bad times, and there's been in between. But this team's ability to move on to the next thing has been really good. And when you watch our team play and you turn on the video, and as you'll see this weekend, they play with freedom. I mean, and they're a connected dugout, tremendous energy, love playing for each other, love playing for Kentucky. And it really shows by the way they serve each other, whether it be in between innings and the way they really pull for each other. It's been a special thing to watch. And it is part of our culture. But, man, when you can get 18 to 24-year-olds to play with nothing to lose, nothing to prove, and nothing to hide, it's a good thing. And that's where that freedom comes in that you're talking about.
Coach, when you look at West Virginia, I'm sure listening out there today, there's a lot of Clemson fans in the audience that don't know a ton about West Virginia. What's one thing that you and your coaching staff have picked up on that maybe somebody listening here in the upstate wouldn't know about a really good West Virginia team making their way to town as well?
Yeah, I mean, they're as good as team, if not the best team out of the Big 12. I mean, these guys they know how to win. And when you look up, they win games a lot of different ways. They win games on the base pass. They win games with their hitting. They win games with their pitching. I mean, they are a well-balanced team that actually knows how to win. And their head coach is a first-year head coach. He was the assistant. He's done a tremendous job. Matter of fact, he and I graduated from the same college.
No
we
way.
both graduated from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
Wow.
In Daytona Beach, Florida. So, yeah, we attended the same college. So, but they know how to win. That's the bottom line. They know how to win.
That's incredible. That really is. And then, Coach, before we let you go, last question. When you look at, obviously, you're focused on West Virginia, but when you see the reaction of your team going to the Clemson Regional, what is it that jumps off the page to you about this Clemson team in 2025?
Well, they had a season where they all the great teams, I feel like Clemson, they had stretches where they played unbelievable. They had stretches where they had to grind. They had stretches where they learned how to win, right? Like they've been through all the emotions of the season, and they're playing really good baseball right now. I think when you look up, it's like they're playing as good as they've had all year. So they're really like peaking and clicking at the right time.
Without a doubt, Coach. Appreciate you taking time to hop on with me. Safe travels, and we'll see you this weekend in Clemson.
Thank you for having me. We'll see you this weekend.
Man, how good was that? How good of an interview. Sometimes you not to be disrespectful to certain coaches or to certain guests, but sometimes you have coaches on and they're okay, they're good coaches. But Nick Mingione, who you just heard right here on the Fan Upstate, fantastic interview. Again, maybe you just got in your car on this Wednesday afternoon, headed home, maybe you're headed to work, maybe you're doing a little running of the errands on this Wednesday, and you ask, well, why are we hearing from the Kentucky baseball coach? Mingione is previewing the Clemson tournament because his team's playing in the Clemson tournament this weekend. The Kentucky Wildcats, one of the 4 teams in Clemson. Again, the regional Clemson, USC Upstate, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Yesterday on the show, you heard from Nick Mingione as we just had that interview, and Kane Sweeney, the USC Upstate coach. JD on the YouTube stream says Mingione is a smart guy regarding Clemson. We still have some time to tell, but hopefully I am right about Clemson and being fine coming tournament time. I will say, I think his answer, and your point, JD, I think it's fine as long as Clemson doesn't do what I brought up last week. And I don't know if you Clemson fans out there recall or remember exactly what my discussion was. But look, sometimes I really do try to be realistic. Clemson had a good series to end the regular season against Pitt. right? They swept them. Good win. They won some really impressive ACC tournament games. They got their butts whooped against North Carolina in the championship. So I hope, JD, I hope you and Nick Mingione and everybody else who thinks Clemson will be okay, I hope you all are right. However, last week I did play the role of someone, of a Clemson fan who did have a little bit of concern just because of who they have played. And what I mean by that is, will Clemson still continue to play well when they enter the regional and potentially the super regional? If they enter the super regional, obviously they've played well. But will they continue to play well this weekend when they're playing really good teams? Upstate's a good team. They already beat them once this year. West Virginia's a good team. Kentucky's a good team. They've been inconsistent at times. But, again, Clemson takes care of business against the teams they're supposed to beat. That's what I've noticed in 2025. The teams they're supposed to beat, they take care of business against. The good teams, though, they have at times struggled a little bit. And I think that's fair criticism. I really do. They've struggled at times against the higher competition, the higher quality competition. Hopefully they don't struggle against higher quality competition this weekend. They'll have Upstate on Friday. I think they'll beat Upstate. But Upstate's a very formidable team. They really are, man. Daily Wires, it's our top stories in the sports world. That's next. It is time to take a big picture abroad, look around the sports world, and see what's happening. The headlines, we call them on this show, are daily wires. Diesel's not here to do the buzz like he normally is. It kind of makes me sad, but the sound effect, I guess, is good enough for today. Tolo, so good to be with you on this Wednesday. The Atlanta Braves lost again last night. That's what they do these days, is lose. Philadelphia Phillies last night, 2-0 win over the Bravos. In the NBA last night, the Indiana Pacers defeated the New York Knicks 130-121, now lead 3-1. That series kind of looks like it might be over, right? Kind of looks like it might be over. In Foxborough, Massachusetts, the New England Patriots' Stephon Diggs was not present for Wednesday's voluntary OTAs, one day after a video of the wide receiver surfaced on social media in which he was on a boat and flashed an unidentified pink substance while surrounded by 3 women. Patriots coach Mike Vrabel, who addressed reporters before practice, was asked if the video was something the team needs to look into. Vrabel said, "It's something we're aware of, and obviously we want to make great decisions on and off the field. Any conversations that I've had with Stephon will remain between him, I, and the club." Not a great look for Stephon Diggs, the new guy. I don't know, man. That's a bad look. Really bad look right before OTAs. Terrible news in the college football world today. Baylor defensive lineman Alex Foster, 18 years old, died earlier Wednesday while home in Mississippi. The team announced Foster from Greenville, Mississippi, redshirted the 2024 season at Baylor and went through spring practice. Baylor said he died unexpectedly overnight. With no further details, Baylor did release a statement where they said, "We are heartbroken by the unexpected loss of Alex Foster, a beloved member of our football family." Baylor coach Dave Aranda and athletic director Mack Rhodes said in a joint statement, "Our deepest condolences are with Alex's family and all who loved him as we lift them up in prayer and in the days to come. Alex's memory will forever be a part of our hearts and program." Just absolute terrible, terrible news out of Baylor. Hate to see that, really do. In Bowling Green, Florida, Tiger Woods needs to make room on his trophy shelf for his son Charlie. Why, you ask? Well, the 16-year-old son of the 15-time major winner, shot a 6-under 66 in the final round to win the American Junior Golf Association's Team TaylorMade Invitational. Goodness gracious, can it be a longer name? At the Streamsong Resort Black Course on Wednesday. Woods bested a 71-player field that included 4 of the top 5 ranked AJGA players for his first AJGA title in 5 events. His previous best finish was a tie for 25th. So Charlie Woods, how about that, man? Really, really impressive. Out of Destin, Florida, LSU's Brian Kelly on Wednesday said the SEC coaches favor adding one non-conference game against a Big Ten opponent in a scheduling agreement, but they need a partner to do it. Kelly said, "We want to compete against the Big Ten." In a interview during the SEC spring meetings, he also said, "Look, the Big Ten right now holds it on to the SEC. They won the last 2 national championships. That's the reality of it. We want to get challenged in that regard, and we'd like to be able to get that done." Auburn guard Tahan Pettiford will withdraw from the 2025 NBA draft and return to Auburn for one more season, his sophomore season, he says. He says, "I was happy to go through the process, getting feedback from NBA teams, but going back to Auburn is a better situation for me." The Oilers defeated the Stars on Tuesday by a score of 4-1 and now lead that series 3-1 over Dallas. So that series looks as if it might be on the wrap here soon. Tonight in the NHL, the Panthers will face the Hurricanes in Game 5. Florida leads that series 3-1. We talked about yesterday Carolina breaking the streak of like 15 straight losses in the Eastern Conference Finals. Tonight in the NBA, Minnesota travels to OKC in a series where they find themselves down 3-1. Tip tonight will be at 8:30 p.m. Oklahoma City favored by 8.5 points tonight. So it could be there could be some closeouts in the NBA and NHL. Could be some series coming to an end. I don't know, man. 8.5 points seems like a lot, but you know what? Home game, SGA is going to be fired up. That crowd's going to be fired up. Maybe Oklahoma City does cover tonight. Last Daily Wire for you before we head off to a break. Winston-Salem defeated Hub City last night 4-2 in Spartanburg. Spartanburgers back in action tonight. Game 2, 6:35 p.m. Those are your Daily Wires. Hope you Tolos are having a fantastic Wednesday. We'll get back to the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, some Clemson baseball questions, a little Greg Sankey conversation happening as well. We're also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube where you can watch the show. But let's start the 4 o'clock hour better than we started the 3 o'clock hour, and let's dive into the Braves. Let's do it. They did not play good last night. I have some alarming statistics that Braves fans are not going to feel good about. What is wrong with the Braves? Do you, as a Braves fan, have hope? We'll get into that next. No Diesel this week. He is still on vacation. He'll be back next week. We're going to dive straight into the Atlanta Braves in this very segment. Welcome into Wire to Wire. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to be with you on this Wednesday. Shaping up to be a pretty afternoon, man. Right here looking out the windows in our studios in downtown, or not downtown, but in Greenville. They're looking nice, looking like a nice Wednesday afternoon. Want to dive into the Atlanta Braves conversation, but first I do want to get to a text message from about 19 minutes ago on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line about Clemson, because it's a good question. I had this conversation with somebody else yesterday, but the reality is, it's a conversation that I think maybe should be had among the coaches at Clemson. So, on the text line at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663, before we dive into the Braves, want to get to that because it's rough right now. But texter from the 978 says, if you were Coach Bakich, who do you throw against Upstate on Friday night, Canuck or Titsworth? Good question, because you can look at it from both angles if you are a Clemson fan. The one angle that you look at it from, or through the lens of texter, is, okay, it's a Friday game in a regional. You need your ace out there because you don't want to put yourselves in the loser's bracket per se, right? I did that in air quotes. You don't want to find yourself in trouble against USC Upstate, a really good team. So that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, do you save Aiden Canuck for a potential matchup against either West Virginia or Kentucky? There's part of me, texter, and this is a good question we'll ask Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com coming up in about 20 minutes on the show. There's part of me that thinks maybe you should hold Canuck. Maybe you should, because if you go back to the last time that Clemson played Upstate, it was a midweek game, right? Canuck wasn't the pitcher, right? Correct me if I'm wrong there, texter. And Clemson won 7-0. Again, taking nothing away from USC Upstate. They're a really good baseball team. They're playing their absolute best baseball right now. They won the Big South. But there's part of me that thinks, man, if you can't beat Upstate with Titsworth or somebody else, you might have bigger, deeper problems. It's a great question. Now, if I had a lean, if I had to put money on it, I would guess they would go with Canuck, right? But I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's a really good question. If I were Coach Bakich, I'll tell you this, I'd probably be battling myself with that very question. I see both sides. You want to win Friday. You don't want to put yourself in a bad spot with already one loss in your own regional, right? You don't want to do that. So that's a question we'll ask Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com. Get his thoughts on. JD says, also ask Grayson Mann which team they'd rather face, like I asked you, West Virginia or Kentucky. That's a good one as well. Madcraft says on the stream, I was asking if you were going to do a preview of each regional, in which case I offered to do the Hattiesburg regional. Of course, Madcraft, you're more than welcome to do a preview of the Hattiesburg regional if you would like to. Yeah, tomorrow is Thursday, and then Friday. We'll spend a good amount of time tomorrow and Friday taking a deeper dive into each regional, because there are some fascinating matchups out there. There really are. If you're not a college baseball fan, I would encourage you to watch this weekend and then come away and say, oh, man. I mean, and not be amused is what I'm saying. It's really going to be a lot of fun. College baseball, especially in the postseason, man, it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat. All right. Speaking of hard to beat, the Atlanta Braves find it hard to beat anyone right now. That's the reality of it. Let's dive into the Atlanta Braves. Let's get this monkey off our back, because the Braves play almost every day. We talk about the Braves most days on this show. And the reality is right now, man, they're in a tough spot. Losing game one to Philadelphia last night. And I believe it was JD and I who were talking about this yesterday, about them getting swept possibly in what it could do for the NL East standings. The Atlanta Braves, after last night's loss, are now 9.5 games back out of first place. So here you are, steamrolling into the month of June. All-Star break in the near future, right? You can now see the All-Star break on the calendar. You don't have to click like 3-4 months in advance anymore. And here you are as a Braves fan finding yourself 9.5 games back out of first place. So I have a very simple question to ask you Braves fans who may be listening today. And if you are, appreciate you doing so. On 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, 97.7 FM in Greenville. Where do you stand? How much faith do you have that this season can be salvaged? Do you still have faith? Do you still have hope that this season isn't over? Because if you do, I would love for you to share some of that with me. I'm in desperate need of faith and hope right now on this Wednesday when it comes to the Atlanta Braves. I'm down. I'll just be honest with you. I'll be flat out just straight shooting with you on this Wednesday. I'm down on the Braves. Madcraft may say, well, Cole, you're always down on the Braves. What's new? Sometimes I am. Sometimes I was optimistic when Acuna came back Friday. I said on the show that I think they might get this thing turned in the right direction. But now on the 28th of May, the Atlanta Braves find themselves 9.5 games back. The Phillies are a good team. The Braves lost 2-0 last night to Philadelphia. And I don't know if the Braves are going to win the series. I don't know if the Braves win a game. I am down on the Braves right now, and if you still have a little bit of faith, a little bit of hope, please, please, please share some with me because I need it. Last night was bad, man. The offense has not been jump-started. Phone lines are open. Hub City Spartanburgers text line open as well at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. Matt, I'm not going to argue, Madcraft, I'm not going to argue with you today because I'm too down and defeated as a Braves fan to argue with you. I really am. So if you want to call the show, any Tolos, if you're a Braves fan, text or call 844-326-3663. Let's go back down to the stream and see some of these Braves comments from some Tolos. JB on the YouTube stream, not JD, but JB, B as in boy, says, they may go on a hot streak when they play a few series against subpar opponents, but it just seems like they don't have the horses to keep up with the likes of the Phillies, the Mets, or the Dodgers. JB, I don't disagree with you there. I don't disagree with you there. It does seem like they take care of business against, bad teams, but they're not real competitive against the good ones. Not real competitive against the good ones, right? Don't push back on that, JB. JD, D as in dog, JD says, I don't want to use the word faith. Can the Braves have a respectable season still? Yes, but they will still fall drastically short of expectations. Don't disagree with that. Don't disagree with that at all. Not one bit. It's just it's puzzling right now. Braves, JD says the Braves should have just taken a loss instead today's game instead of a postponement to play a doubleheader tomorrow. Save yourselves and everyone else a little time. Just take the L. He says he don't want to use the word faith. Let's see. Madcraft says managing Atlanta disrespect. I guess that's what MAD stands for. I don't know about that. Here's a stat for you Braves fans out there. I want to throw this at you. When it comes to somebody that I'm extremely disappointed in this season. Do you remember that guy that that the Braves got when we traded away Freddie Freeman? Do y'all remember that guy? His name was Matt Olson. Do you remember when Matt Olson played good baseball? I know it may seem like a long time ago, but Matt Olson is my biggest disappointment in the 2025 Braves season. He wasn't good in 2024 at times either. But I want to throw this stat at you. In the last 17 at-bats, which is a few games, right? This just goes to show how bad Matt Olson has been as of late. In his last 17 at-bats, Matt Olson has a batting average of .059. 0.59. That is Matt Olson's batting average in the last 17 at-bats. Folks, that's not a joke. That is legitimately 100% true. Matt Olson is supposed to be a guy with some firepower that leads this team. He's not right now. Let me grab this phone call. Wilder Wire, what's your name?
Come on.
All right, you know I have to throw that at you. You know it's my one of my all-time favorite movies, and when you're by yourself, you can't screen calls live. Let's go to the phone lines, 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. It's the number you can use to call or text the show. If you heard the Matthew McConaughey chest bump there and we're wondering what was up with that, well, again, I have to have something to grab the call real quick. I am solo today. But Daredevil wants to chime in about the Atlanta Braves. What's up, my friend?
Hey, I checked that last night. He has 4 more home runs than our boy Freddie does.
Well, you know what? That's something to write home to Mom about, right? Matt Olson?
I mean, and you remember in 21, we didn't get above 500 till August, and we had a pretty good year that year.
In 2021, Daredevil, that's a good point. So let's stop there for a second. 2021, to your point, All-Star break, midpoint of the season, Braves below 500. However, what happened, Daredevil, at the All-Star break?
They took the All-Star game away. I know that because I had tickets for it.
The Braves made some serious moves,
well,
right?
Yeah.
And brought in guys.
I've been watching them.
You don't win that championship.
For over 40 years.
Well, I'm just saying.
Hoping for good.
In 2021, Daredevil, you don't win that championship without the what happened at the right there before the deadline, bringing in those guys. My problem is now who's out there that you're going to bring in. Listen, this is my point, Daredevil, and you tell me if you agree or disagree with me. Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back, one of the best players on planet Earth, right? He comes back, granted only a few games, but in his 17 or whatever at-bats he's had, he can't jumpstart this offense. If Ronald Acuna can't jumpstart this offense, what do you do?
I listened to him through the decade of the 80s. I'm always optimistic.
Well, I'm glad you are because I'm not right now. I'm down on him.
I ain't got nothing to do till high school football in August.
I know. I mean, the Braves are all we have, right?
Yep. Well, you seem to be running smooth, sir.
Well, I appreciate you. I am solo. Diesel's on vacation, and appreciate your phone call, Daredevil.
All right. If you decide to mention my YouTube,
you go ahead. You want to mention it? You want to mention your YouTube channel?
Well, you tell them what you saw first.
That's a great segue. I was sent, if you Tolos out there don't know who Daredevil is, he's a longtime listener, great guy, great friend of the show. I was sent a video of Daredevil's new YouTube channel. And I watched quite possibly the greatest, funniest video I've ever watched in my entire life. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Daredevil. I believe the name of it was Gun Unsafety. Is that right?
Yes, my wife named it that. And because now I knew how to fire a 22 mag, and boys and girls were shooting into the ground who were not causing problems. When I shot that Colt 357, I didn't know how to hold it properly because I can't see people in the movies or whatever holding the gun. And the way I held it is not the way you need to do it, sir. And it was quite painful. I still got a bruise. I thought I had 10,000 bumblebees.
Is it wrong that I laughed at that, Daredevil? Is it wrong that I laughed at that?
No, everybody. I had one of the first phone calls I got when I got in. Somebody goes, "Well, you idiot!" But I mean, they didn't say hello. He said, "What are you thinking?"
Yeah. Holding them up.
The Blind Man live.
That's the name of the channel.
Blind Man, yes, sir. You better be subscribing to me, Cole.
I already have.
Good.
Man.
At The Blind Man Live, y'all. I'm gonna ride a bicycle, drive a car, drive a boat, this Friday if it's not too wet, I'm driving the riding lawnmower. I'll try anything that doesn't get me killed. That'll be fun.
Daredevil, you're a mess, but you're the best. Appreciate
Thank you, buddy.
man.
I'll see you. Appreciate it.
You just can't make this stuff up. You really cannot make Daredevil. For those of you that don't know Daredevil, he's been a long-time caller on local sports radio for a really, really long time. And he is, I'm telling you, he's one of the best people you know. He's a great guy. He's got a great wife. And he is a freaking nut. So at the Blind Man Live, I believe, is his YouTube channel that he's talking about there. So it's funny. It's funny. I'll just be quite frank with you. I was watching him, a blind man, shoot a gun the other day, and it was quite comical. I laughed pretty hard. I'm not going to lie to you. Thanks for the call, Daredevil. I needed that. I needed that boost of laughter and encouragement on this day where I'm so down and dreadful concerning the Atlanta Braves. I really did need that, Daredevil. That's good stuff. So again, Matt Olson's a big problem right now. The Braves, to my question to Daredevil when we were talking about the Braves, I don't know exactly what the answer is, what the fix is, because if Ronald Acuna Jr. was inserted into this lineup and they're still not better, he's still not able to jumpstart this offense, I just don't know, quite frankly, what the solution or what the answer is. It's not Ronald Acuna's job to make everybody else hit better. Let me be very clear about that. But at the same time, goodness gracious, you would think that just like not hitting the baseball is contagious, hitting the baseball is contagious as well. And right now it's just not contagious. Like Ronald Acuna's hitting the cover off the ball. Ozuna's still hitting the ball well. And I believe I said yesterday he was leading the team in batting average. Drake Baldwin, 337, but again, only a limited number of at-bats. It's just not contagious baseball for the Atlanta Braves right now. And it's a big concern. It's a big concern. They've lost last night? They've now lost 5 of their last 6 or something like that. So it's just not good. They're not, and I know your home run leader on the team is Matt Olson, but it's just not good because this Braves team just doesn't seem like they have an answer. I don't know. Madcraft, I hadn't seen you on the stream. I know that you're probably MIA with this Braves conversation, but it's not good, man. Right now, the Braves suck. They sucked at the very beginning of the season. They suck again right now. They are playing bad baseball. Well, they turn it around, hopefully so, but they're not good right now. They're really not. All right, we're going to run off to a break, talk Clemson baseball, the Clemson Regional this weekend right here in the Upstate. To join us and talk about it, Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com. time to talk a little Clemson baseball, Clemson Regional this weekend, and we are joined live right now by Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, good friend of the show, to discuss everything that's happening this weekend. If you are a Clemson fan and have a question for Grayson, like a couple of you Tolos have already done, get it in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's FANFONE. Grayson, how are you, man?
Well, my car's engine is fixed, Cole, so I'm doing splendid, man.
What'd you do to it?
So I brought it in yesterday for a routine service, and they walked out. They're like, "Hey, something's wrong with the engine. We're just gonna check it out real quick." And then they're like, "Oh, the thermostat in it is blown, and your car could have overheated in the wrong situation." So I was like, "All right, I guess we're leaving this thing here overnight." And so we're running with a nice little rental, and just got it back today.
Is that one of those things like where you go in for your oil change and they find like 8 other problems, or is like a thermostat of that? I mean, I guess maybe the Tolos out there can tell. Maybe a thermostat's pretty valuable to have, right?
You know, I'm not a mechanic buff, Cole, and it may be the case, and I'm just gullible over there sitting on my computer like, oh no, but if they tell me something's wrong with the car, I'll certainly believe them over me because they know what they're doing, but it's just good to have it fixed.
You go in for an oil change and they tell you, hey, you need 6 new tires, right?
That's what I thought. Whatever. I'm like, hey, I don't think there's 6 tires on my car, but all right.
Whatever. But yeah, go ahead and do it. You still, I've seen some fun. Hey, Grayson, show programming note question for you. When I'm solo, as I am this week, and I answer the phone call, you can't screen a call live over the air. So I've picked my favorite movie and my favorite scene out of my favorite movie to play the audio while I grab the phone call. Is this appropriate, or can you think of a better movie scene / sounder / sound effect that I should play on air whenever I go to grab the phone call? Here's mine.
I knew exactly what it is the second you started it.
It's a good one, right?
That's good. That's good.
You like that? I mean, that one's hard to beat, right?
That's good.
Can you think of a better one? I mean, that gives me like 15 seconds to grab the phone.
That's pretty good, and it gets you pumped up a little bit too. It's from a good movie, so that's all you can ask for.
Really good movie. Really good stuff. Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, joins me right here on the Fan Upstate. Clemson Baseball Regionals. Let's go to the text line. I also have a couple on the stream as well, Grayson. I want to let our Tolos out there, let their voice be heard. Had a good text come in about 43 minutes ago, and we discussed it, and then we decided that we would ask you your opinion as well, Grayson. But the text read, if you are Coach Bakich this weekend, who do you throw against Upstate on Friday, Canuck or Titsworth? We had the discussion. What say you, Grayson?
You know, it's an interesting discussion because I don't think USC Upstate's your typical 4 seed because there has been a history between these two ball clubs. I believe they got the best of them in a midweek last year. And so there's some familiarity between these two programs. And as well with this ball club that you got on Friday night, they beat NC State. They run-ruled them. And so there's a little bit of an edge to this one. It's kind of similar to softball, where you got Kentucky and Upstate coming in. So it's almost like deja vu. But I think right now I'd be leaning towards maybe Titsworth on Friday night and seeing if you can save Canuck for potentially Kentucky or West Virginia. But also at that same time, is Titsworth, what he's shown in the last couple months, is that necessarily sustainable for the postseason? Do you try to just throw Canuck out there, get the win, and just get to that evening game on Saturday and not put yourself in a hole early, potentially rolling the dice? So I definitely see both sides of it, Cole. Personally, me, I try to save your ace for a tougher opponent, but I do believe Upstate has some challenges that they could present to Clemson.
So you're okay taking that risk, right?
I think that I would probably expect Canuck to go just because I think in Bakich's mind, it's let's just get the win and figure out the rest later. Because you run that risk of putting yourself in a hole, and I think this group for Clemson maybe doesn't have the stuff to go potentially 4 games into a regional. Because if you get to that final spot, and we've seen what happened in a 3-game sample size in the ACC tournament, Cole, where you have Canuck, then Titsworth, then Bell, and there's a little bit of a sequential rotation there. You found some stuff that worked in Durham, but maybe mixing that up, throwing it off a little bit. I think there's pros and cons to both. I think with this pitching staff in particular, there's a massive risk, but there's also a massive reward that comes with it.
And I think that's well said. I think the massive again, I don't know if Eric Bakich is ballsy enough to do it. I think the massive reward is bigger than the massive risk. And because of what you just said you don't know if Clemson has the depth to go in a long weekend, a couple of games go into extra innings, right? Like, I think it's ballsy, but I think I take the risk. Like, you want to be able to have Canuck for a good West Virginia team or a good, Kentucky team. Do you think Eric Bakich will, if you had to put money on it, you think he'll throw out Canuck, or is there any suggestion, anything you've heard that might lead you otherwise?
Well, I'll take his statement from Monday where they had the selection show, and immediately before the players were sent out, I'm sure a lot of them were getting ready to go out for Memorial Day, have the day off, just sort of experience that. And before everyone was released from the room after they were revealed the bracket in the field, he said, we're going to just focus on USC Upstate. Any of your friends that you talk to, any media, anybody, it's just focused on this one game. So from that standpoint, it makes me think, okay, if we're focused on this one game here, changing yourself in the mind of Bakich, then in that point, you're probably thinking that Canucks the thought process there, and that's the guy you're going to roll out there on Friday. I do think, though, and Cole, this is just hypothetically speaking, let's say Titsworth starts. He gives you 5-6 good innings, maybe even 4.5. Just gets you to that point where you feel comfortable and you're able to save your ace potentially for a Saturday game against a really good West Virginia team or a Kentucky group that's had some upsets and has a history of playing well to competition. I could see it going both ways, right from that frame of mind where Bakich is talking about, okay, we're singularly focused on this game. We'll worry about the rest later.
Yeah.
That makes me inclined to believe that they're going to roll Canuck. But I do think that there's been a discussion, and I think there's an intense conversation of weighing out the pros and cons of saying, all right, here's the risk. But also, as you pointed to, there's a massive reward to being able to save Canuck for Saturday and potentially even a doubleheader on Sunday. There's just a lot of factors within this regional with this pitching staff that you have to account for.
I think that's a great conversation, but big picture-wise, Eric Bakich been in the program now for a few years. Is it concerning? Is it a bad thing that we're having this conversation? Like, shouldn't Clemson have – I'm not saying they should have two Canucks, but shouldn't you have a guy that you can throw out there against USC Upstate and not have to throw Canuck?
I do think there are some injuries that have plagued this pitching staff, particularly with Ethan Darden, who got hurt in the middle of the year. Haven't been able to roll him out. He was your Saturday starter. In that case, if we were having this conversation and injuries weren't a thing, let's say we can turn the sliders off and Clemson's perfectly healthy. They've got Luke Muller and they've got Ethan Darden able to throw out there, who was going to be that three-man rotation. Muller, they wanted to be that Sunday guy. And so I think for this group in that situation there, you got a hand tied behind your back already just due to unfortunate circumstances for this team. Now, I do believe there is concern there, but there are also pitchers that are playing in situations that have been midweek guys that have been called up to be the weekend players. There's a lot of people doing a lot of different things that necessarily, I think probably before the season started, you didn't imagine Titsworth being a guy that you have to rely on for 5-6 innings. You probably pictured him as a closer, someone that can relieve, someone that can come in and play the late game situation. Didn't necessarily picture him starting on the mound for a Friday regional against USC Upstate. So there are circumstances that play into this, but at the same time, it is that depth that you just sort of have to continue to build. We've seen in other sports where you got to really just find different ways. We saw it with Georgia. You lost a couple left tackles and you weren't able to beat Notre Dame and run the football well with a backup quarterback. And so there's just different sports play. I know it's a different example. We're talking in May about football, but it's been depth that we've seen in the last couple of years that have won titles. And that's going to be an issue for Clemson, regardless of how long this season continues for.
We're talking to Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, right here on the Fan Upstate. Grayson, JD asked earlier, and I'm trying to find it right now on the stream, if you're Clemson and you do take care of business against Upstate on Friday, who would you rather face on Saturday in that first matchup that you have, or whenever that first matchup would be, Kentucky or West Virginia?
It's interesting because I do believe West Virginia is probably on paper the better ball club, but I do believe Kentucky's got more quality wins, which you look at their record on paper and you go, okay, why is this team it's hanging around? I mean, they're 28-23, but they've had some big wins, or 29-24, excuse me. They've had some big wins. They've beaten Auburn. They've beaten Georgia. You run rule Louisville, a team that Clemson played earlier in the year. You beat Tennessee, and I think in that sample size, in this regional setting, you just need to have a couple good days. And so Kentucky's certainly capable of that. And they've had more impressive wins than West Virginia, which also leads into a different conversation of how the bracket's been structured more heavily favored towards the SEC. I mean, you just got to give credence to the better teams are in that conference. And that's just kind of how reality is at this point. I think if you're a Clemson fan, and it's going to really largely depend on pitching, I think, and it depends on who's getting thrown out there on Friday night. Let's say it's Canuck and you take care of business against USC Upstate and you go into it with a clean slate. I think I'd probably want to face West Virginia just because of the arsenal of talent that's going to be laid out there. I would be a little bit more worried about Kentucky sort of finding a stride and a spark. So I think that you probably want to face West Virginia, but Kentucky would worry me more of a team that's a little more unpredictable.
Yeah.
In that sense.
No, I'm with you there. What were your thoughts? I don't know if you saw a lot of it or not, but I saw some of it on Twitter Monday when the regionals were announced, Grayson, of Clemson fans upset that they thought that this was another tough draw. Your thoughts on that?
You know, I don't see a 2-seed Tennessee in there, so I think Clemson fans probably are a little bit happier. But I think it just at this point, you're sort of seated on the back end of the national seeding of the top 16, so you're going to expect a naturally tougher draw. I think the tougher draw of the mix was Coastal Carolina, who I really felt like was deserving of a national seed. I know that within the Sun Belt, you're playing within a different conference. The schedule is not as difficult. You're not playing as hard midweeks, except you did take care of Clemson twice, and Clemson ends up being ranked ahead of you. Is just sort of how the things fall apart in that sense. So I think in terms of my first reaction was, man, this isn't a tough draw. That wasn't where like, oh, Clemson gets hosed in this situation. It's a matter of we're thinking about rotation. We're thinking about, okay, this is a familiar group. Kentucky and West Virginia, you got to do some research on that front. I do think Clemson got a fair draw, but I don't know how fair goes depending on who you ask. You're the 11th overall seed. You're definitely not going to get as much as a break as maybe on the front end where you're 8, 7, 6. Probably had that opportunity there on the doorstep if you had taken care of business against North Carolina. We know how that went. They've washed that game. And so potentially a national seed was on the conversation if Clemson had won the ACC. You're an 11 seed, and so that's just sort of how the cookie crumbles.
What about the North Carolina game, the championship game, Grayson? Clemson just not really competitive, a lopsided result for the Tigers. Does that concern you, or do you look at it as, you know what, you played some good games, you beat some good teams in the ACC championship, and you can completely learn from that bad loss against the Tar Heels?
Well, it's crazy how the conversation has changed in the last few weeks, where I think you and I were in Diesel were sitting here a few weeks ago before Durham, and we're talking about where is Clemson going to travel to for the regional, thinking, where is this team, where is this headed after that series loss to Duke? And the ACC championship or the ACC tournament, however you want to frame it, I think Clemson got what they came for, which was pick up a couple more wins and show that Pittsburgh series wasn't a fluke, because you and I had that conversation about competition and seeing, well, it is Pittsburgh sort of in the middle of the pack, probably towards the bottom of the ACC. Is that necessarily the wins we want to be praising Clemson for? And you go out there and you beat Virginia Tech, you take care of business against an NC State team in a thrilling game. That's one of the better baseball games I've watched in quite some time. And then you really, I think, put out a decisive victory against Georgia Tech. Really unfortunate situation for them. That reaction, I don't know if you've seen it, Cole. I know this is a little off topic, but there's a clip of a guy to the right of Georgia Tech, like at the center, when they're revealing where they were going. And one guy's clapping and he looks over and everyone's pissed. And he's like, gotta change it up a little bit.
I have not seen that.
Oh, I got to send that to you. But anyways, I think Clemson got what they came for. And I think had they lost to Virginia Tech, maybe they're a little bit lower. Maybe they're creeping on the fence of a host seed. So you got what you came for. And then I think rotation-wise, and this is going to just be a concern of their overall postseason ceiling, is you get to that fourth day of that rotation, whether it's B.J. Bailey, you throw out Dvorsky for a little bit, you can just start to see the cracks in the armor, especially if the offense isn't really having the stuff. And they really did, to their credit, in that ACC tournament run. And so I think they just ran out of gas, and that depth is going to be a concern. And that's what you try to avoid in the next couple rounds, whether that's the regional, super regional, is getting to that lower tier echelon of this pitching staff where you're having to throw guys like them out. And the offense really has to play perfect at that point. And they really haven't been. It's been a kind of an inconsistent run. But if you can get that mix from Virginia Tech to Georgia Tech and just try to squeeze that together, I do think this is a team that has a good chance to make a run.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Texter from the 978 says, question for Grayson. What are some of your thoughts when looking at Upstate's lineup? Spartans have a big bat in the heart of the order with Johnny Sweeney. That comes from a texter, Grayson. You have an answer or a comment on that?
Yeah, we talked to Bakic about that. Said this is a really powerful lineup, and Bakic had referenced that familiarity and saying that also could lay some credence to this conversation about who you're going to pitch out there, because there is a lot of respect for this USC Upstate ball club from Bakic. Had nothing but great things to say about it, especially given the points that we've laid out here, is that you might sit there going, this isn't just a typical 4 seed. And I really believe that. I think that's probably where fans are probably thinking maybe they're a little bit irked about the draw, because if you look at that overall picture, this is a good team, and it's a team with a lot of power. We've seen that up close. We've seen that in Doug Kingsmore even last year. I know that the result in Floor Field this year was a little bit different. But to answer the Texas question, I do think that that's going to lead more to that conversation of, okay, who do we lie out here? Is it Titsworth? Is it Canuck? You start to lean more to Canuck when those points are being made, and you just want to try to get that win and try to see if you can make this a 3-game and 4-game instead of trying to drag it out unnecessarily for this group.
Grayson Mann has kindly agreed to stay with us one more segment. Before we run, one last question for you in this segment, Grayson, before we run to a break, and we'll continue the Clemson conversation for one more segment after this commercial break. But when you look at what Clemson softball and John Rittman did, obviously a tough way for their season to come to an end. I thought after that Thursday night win late, almost midnight, I thought, man, this team might, put it out in 2 games and go ahead and punch their ticket. But a tough way to lose those next 2 against a really good Texas team. But overall, a good season for John Rittman, a really good season.
I would even use the word remarkable. You were really with runners on 3rd and 2nd and no outs. You're really just probably a ball in play from clinching a trip to Oklahoma City, and we're having a completely different conversation today. Just a really interesting group to watch all year. I think in years past, a lot of it was, okay, when is Valerie Cagle? When is Mackenzie Clark? When some of those really program icons, when are they going to make the play? And it really felt like if there was a word to describe this group, it was collaborative. And so there was different players making plays. You had the Marion Collins walk-off home run. You had Kylie Johnson winning against Florida State, that 2-run homer to take the lead up in the Northeast in Brighton. So there's just so many different examples that we could throw out here. But what a season and what a coaching effort from this group, especially with how they started and how this season was, I think, framed as a retooling of how is this group going to necessarily bounce back from losing so many people that were program icons, program foundations, and they've really etched themselves into a situation where the last time they were in the Supers, a lot of them probably count them out against a really powerhouse in Oklahoma. You're a couple plays away from beating Texas, and you could say that for both games 2 and 3. So remarkable effort from this group, and I would expect them to be back in that position, perhaps in Oklahoma City next year with the talent they're bringing in and the freshman talent that's only going to get better.
I lied to you. One more kind of a follow-up to that. Do you find, I know I do that sometimes.
Wow.
Do you find in your coverage and interaction with fans, do you find a growing sense of the Clemson fan base that's not originally a softball fan base? Do you find that Clemson softball fan base starting to get a little more momentum and maybe grow a little bit past what it normally is?
All right, just take a look at the response we got from our live stories on TigerNet.com over the course of that series. Was just the overall enthusiasm that continues to be poured into this program, and just a group that it's nothing but positive vibes. It sounds so cliche and catchy, but that's just sort of how the program vibes. And there was a clip that really resonated with me. It's the regional. They're playing Kentucky. It's really tight. Clemson hadn't pulled away quite yet. And if you just look over to your right ever so slightly, you see Maddie Moore just sort of dancing in the outfield, having a good time, and the fans really responding to that. There's just a really, I think, symbiotic relationship between the fans and this program right now that have really, I think, just boosted not only the numbers for it, the attention, but just when you continue to see the success that they've been able to pull off despite some of the narratives we built to begin the season. It's just been a real satisfying watch, I think, for this fan base. They're really eager to see where this group goes.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com is going to stick with us through this break and finish hour number 2 strong with Clemson conversation. More to come right here on the Fan Upstate. Continuing the conversation with Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com. Grayson said he had a little car trouble. Grayson, one of our Tolos, said, I think the thermostat flows between the radiator and the water pump, but yeah, essentially same location, usually top of the intake manifold. I don't know if that's Spanish or what language he's speaking there. Above your head, above my head as well. I guess that means it's important for you to have a thermostat that's working, right?
It costed pretty important. So,
oh, man. That's rough. I do hate that for you. Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Absolutely the best. Give him a follow on Twitter. We have a couple of minutes. This is a short segment. Wanted to keep him around to finish off this hour. If you have not done so already, give him a follow at Gray_Man21. That's MANN. What was your thoughts on when the rest of the field, the rest of the regionals out there in terms of the overall perspective when you look at this weekend, the college baseball postseason?
You know, it's fascinating. I love in selection shows, and I've just started to make a habit of this just because I probably doom scroll through Twitter way too much. But after the college football playoff selection show, after the NCAA tournament, March Madness, however you want to call it, that selection show, and now for baseball as well, you just kind of scroll through and you gather reactions, and a lot of the consistent thread is with the conversation surrounding the SEC and a couple of programs, even on our own boards on TigerNet.com. You have just, I think the overall, okay, you have 7, I think it was like 7 or 6, Cole, you can correct me if I'm wrong, with it was North Carolina sprinkled in as with the national seedings. So you have just a lot of discourse around that. Now, for someone like me, not too well-versed into regular season baseball outside of the ACC and Clemson, just trying to stay in my own lane, I didn't have a problem with it. The only one that I necessarily had a problem with was probably Coastal Carolina, just because of the work they've put in. It felt like they had enough of a case for maybe even a top 10 seed. 13 felt a little low for them. You had a couple impressive wins over Clemson in the midweek. You win your conference. There wasn't really any doubt they were the overwhelming best team in the Sun Belt, but I think that just sort of, when you compare them to the SEC and some of those other programs, you just sort of get left to the wayside. So that was the only consistent complaint that I had that was maybe on the same level as everybody else. But in terms of the SEC conversation, it's just the reality of how things are right now in college sports. They're the best conference, and that's how they're going to be treated.
And I was wondering about that with Coastal as well. Maybe I agree with you in terms of their seeding. They beat Clemson twice, right, this season. And I mean, you would think with what they did not too long ago, winning the national championship, they would still have some brand recognition. Is brand recognition the reason for that? Just them not having that big brand anymore?
I don't know. It's feel like it's that same conversation that Clemson has sometimes in that playoff discussion back in the 2010s, where they'd get a lot of stuff for the ACC, and rightfully so. That conference has been consistently inferior to the other ones, but they still have that brand recognition of, okay, when they go play the big dogs, they do show up. So we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And as you had pointed out, Coastal has been a baseball powerhouse in Conway, and so you felt like they would probably get a little more credence. I see a comment over there, FSU getting off entirely too easy. Agreed. But so that just is sort of the way it's laid out. And so the only way to prove people right or wrong is to go win games in the postseason. And Coastal's got a tough draw. You bring in Florida in there. It's a pretty enticing mix in Conway. So it'll be an interesting trip down there in southern South Carolina.
That's not easy. When you see Florida coming your way, that's tough. They tweeted out a crazy stat. They've been in like 9 of the last 11 reads. I mean, it's unbelievable. In your mind, Grayson, kind of putting a bow on the Clemson baseball conversation with this weekend's regional approaching, what do you think it is that now that you've watched this team all season long, and Nick Mingione brought it up yesterday, that you have ebbs and flows, throughout the season, and you are battle tested. If you feel like, if you're a Clemson fan, you feel like you've played some of the best teams. Sometimes you didn't perform the best against those teams. But what do you feel like it is, the X factor, if you were on the broadcast and they asked you, keys to victory in order for Clemson to advance past this regional this weekend?
I think Clemson's superstar has to play like a superhero, and I think Cam Cannarella has done that in May. I think he's hitting over 500 in this month. He's been playing ridiculous. If there's a word to describe it, it feels like every timely hit, he's the one that's making it. He's getting great contact. He's seeing the ball well. And then obviously in the outfield, he's making those ridiculous routine plays that are simply just routine for him. So I think for Clemson, you need a big weekend out of him. I expect that. I do expect Clemson to get out of this regional and to potentially be traveling to Baton Rouge to play LSU in what's kind of a fun football preview, which should be pretty interesting.
So is that where you have them marked to go if they were to advance? Is that right?
I do
LSU?
have a little bit of it's going to be funny because you have this baseball super regional, and then LSU will come to Clemson in August. So you'll have a lot of cross pollination between the sports. But I do think that's going to be how things will shake out, just in my estimation of everything. But I think that'd be a fun little matchup there in Baton Rouge. Maybe have to make that trip.
It would be. It would be real fun, especially if you made it more than a day trip to Baton Rouge. Grayson, man, you're the best. Always appreciate you, man. And for those that don't know, where can they find your work, not only on Twitter but online as well?
Yeah, you can find our work at tigernet.com. We got a bunch of stuff being unveiled. Official visits are also this weekend. Recruiting, big recruiting weekend for Clemson. Dabo Swinney's high school camp is also next week. We'll have on-the-ground coverage for that. And then obviously for baseball regionals and anything beyond how Clemson advances, we will be there as well. And you can check out myself on Twitter at Gray_man21 if you want to leave any comments or just reach out with any critiques, feedback, whatever you want to talk about. My DMs are open. Cole, thanks as always, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm going to hold you to your word about that NBA Finals, man. We got to get a drink sometime.
Let's do it. NBA Finals, Timberwolves, are they closed out tonight real quick?
Yeah.
Are they done?
We got Thunder Pacers coming up, so that'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right on that. Grayson, you're the best. Grayson, man, tigernet.com. Always appreciate him taking time to join us right here on the Fan Upstate. Again, check out his work if you haven't done so already. There is a takeover happening in hour number 3. It's not the Tolo takeover that happens on Thursdays at 5. It is a Rob Brown Show takeover, the morning show. Rob's going to attempt to take over for the next hour. What he and I will talk about, that's TBD, but it's next right here on the Fan Upstate. It is time for a takeover. It's not the Tolo takeover that happens on Thursdays at 5 o'clock on the Fan Upstate. It's the Rob Brown Show takeover, where two worlds collide. The morning show and afternoon show have collided. All right, it collided. Is that a word, Rob? It sounds weird.
But you're good at words, and I think you nailed that one.
It sounds weird, though. They've collided right here on the Fan Upstate. Hey, Rob, did you hear what happened today at 3 o'clock?
Oh, I did not. What happened today at 3 o'clock? I'm not going to lie, Cole. I was taking a hell of a nap at 3 o'clock.
Hope it was good. You look great, so it did help. I, at 3 o'clock every day, hit the White Orbit 1 button twice. You've ran the board. You do a lot. When you hit the button twice, Rob, it brings it from national to local. Supposed to. When I hit the button twice today at 3 o'clock, nothing happened. And for about 15 to 20 minutes, there was no wire-to-wire. It was there was a big delay because we had a building-wide technical difficulty with Wide Orbit today. So it's fortunate. We're lucky that we're on the air together right now. It could have been worse.
Well, I'll start with congratulations on the 15-minute break. I know as somebody who does this quite a bit, those 15-minute breaks are absolutely spectacular. So well done on that, A. And B, congratulations on breaking the entire radio cluster, Cole. That's impressive. I don't think I've managed to pull that off yet.
We actually blamed it on you, believe it or not. We decided collectively to blame it on Rob Brown. Oh, by the way, did you answer or read all of your texts today on the show?
I did read all of my text this morning, specifically went back and read them in places where they had no business being read so that everybody would be super duper thrilled that Rob is hosting his show the way that the chat demands that he does. You're all welcome.
That makes me so happy. You have no idea. Yeah. That makes me so happy. The Rob Brown Show takeover right here on the Fan Upstate. We're going to get into the NBA, but let's start with the Braves. Let's start with this, man. I said at 4 o'clock today, Rob, I'm down. I'm in despair. I'm in the dumps. I need some hope and faith when it comes to the Atlanta Braves on this Wednesday. Do you have any to offer, or are you in the same boat with me that we're just not real good right now?
No, I have no hope. I have no faith. I have nothing to offer you, Cole Bryson. I wish that I could. I was on BetMGM tonight last night with Ryan Horvat and PJ Glasser filling in for Brad Evans. And PJ asked me the same question, and I'll tell you what I told them. I will tell you what I said on my show yesterday. I said on it today, and obviously the Braves getting rained out today, so we'll go with a double header on the road at Philly tomorrow. My takeaway, Cole Bryson, was that if the Braves walked away from this 3-game set on the road at Philly with a double-digit deficit in the divisional race, I do not think there is a path to win the division. And that maybe in a lot of years wouldn't feel like the end of the world, right? Because how many wild card teams have we seen make a run to the World Series the last couple of years? It's not just not unheard of. It's actually kind of becoming a routine thing over the past couple of years. So I would say in most years, that's not the end of the world, fella. The problem is that we have the fourth worst record in the National League right now and falling. So my takeaway was, if the Braves drop 2 out of 3 at Philadelphia, that will put them in a 10.5 game deficit to the Phillies. And, you can set your watch to the annual second half Philadelphia Phillies meltdown. It's pretty routine at this point. The problem is, you've got to be within striking distance when that meltdown happens. When the Phillies go out there and they lose 13 out of 16, and that record comes back to the pack a little bit, you've got to be in a spot to pounce. And if you were down double-digit games at the end of May going into June, I think you've given them too much space to even feel like you can catch up if they have a meltdown and you have a burst. But here's the part that I'm really down about. Listen, I'm not panicking about Spencer Strider. Actually had a pretty good night last night. Yeah, it took him 90 pitches to get out of 4 innings, but they give up 4 hits, 1 earned run, like at Philly. That's not a bad line. The problem is everybody told me, oh, don't worry, Ronald Acuna's coming back, and when he gets it, look, my man came up, first pitch of the first day being his first game back, he goes yard. The Braves can't do anything after that. The very next day, he gets up and he puts one into low Earth orbit, going 460 whatever to dead center. The stadium is unglued for Ronnie, and we don't touch home plate again. Last night, you left 10 on base in a game that was very winnable against Suarez and the Phillies. Cole, the Braves just aren't doing the little things right at the dish. Brian Snitker keeps mismanaging, in my opinion, the middle relief guys and the closers, throwing the wrong guys at the wrong spot, sending guys down that have no business being sent down. You are getting well above what we expected from the starting five in the rotation right now, CB. It's just that nobody else on the team's doing a damn thing and Snitker's not fixing anything. So I hate to, I'm not going to say I'm giving up on May 28th, but I am telling you, unless the Braves sweep the doubleheader tomorrow, it's going to be really hard for me to find anything to latch on to positive, man.
Me too. No, I'm with you. And by the way, Acuna's now hitting .313, which is good. However, it's just a simple math equation. As he continues to get more at-bats, that's going to drop. It's not going to stay there. My problem that I expressed a large amount of disdain at 4 o'clock on the show today, my biggest issue with this team is Matt Olson. I don't know what in the world, Rob's happened. I don't know if you saw this tweet, but I tweeted out last night, and in his last 17 at-bats, do you know, maybe you looked, do you know what Matt Olson's batting average is in his last 17 at-bats?
Oh, it's got to be somewhere around like the 160 mark, right?
0.59 in his last 17. And like, what's happened to Matt Olson, man? Like, we saw a decline a little bit last year. At times, he wasn't great, but I don't know if you remember back in 2022, there was a stretch in 2022 where Matt Olson was just awful. It's a worse stretch than he had right now. And he had stretches in, Oakland where he was bad too, and he always rebounded. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of hitting the panic button on Matt Olson. This guy is MIA, at least the Matt Olson that we knew and loved, is MIA right now.
So I think Matt Olson is, Cole, kind of an illustration of the Braves' problem at large right now. And that problem is, and we all know it, we all loved it in 2021. We all celebrated it the year that Olson led the team and led the NL and led the Major League Baseball in home runs and RBIs. Like, this was all great. The reality was that team 4 years ago was built to live and die by the home run. And you had two things going for you. Number one, everybody on the squad was 4 years younger and had a little more pop to them. But number two, that was also, you remember the discussion about the juiced ball era. The pitchers were complaining that the balls had a little more bounce to them. Some folks stepped in, did the research, turned out that they did. And so the Braves happened to get very lucky to build a power hitting team in the exact years, those 2 years, that power hitting, because of the build of the baseball, gave you an advantage. We don't have that anymore. And we haven't been a team that hits for contact and hits for consistency and efficiency in a couple of years. And what it's led to, I think, is guys, including Matt Olson, they're pressing right now. I mean, I'm a big Ted Lasso guy. I don't know if you watched the show yet, but there's a scene. Yeah. I adore Ted Lasso. There's a scene where Isaac McAdoo takes over for Roy Kent as the captain, and he's struggling and he's a hole. And Roy brings him to an old soccer field where some young kids are playing, and he goes, "Go out there and have fun. It's just a game. Like, yeah, you're a professional, but it's just a game. Go out there and remember why you love that game." And I kind of hope that this team has their Ted Lasso moment soon of go out there and remember why you love playing baseball. Don't worry about batting 0.59 in the last 5 games. Don't worry about the average where you're. Don't worry about any of this. Go out there, have a good time playing baseball. Don't think you got to send every damn baseball into the next county. Let's go put the ball in play. Let's move guys around the bases and let's win. And we've seen it happen, right? We've got a fistful of games where there are 14, 15, 16 hits with a couple of jacks sprinkled in. But when you have nights last night, and yes, Ranger Suarez is a great pitcher. I'm not taking anything away. But when you have a night like you have last night, where you're in a winnable game, you have 5 hits, you're 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position, you leave 10 guys on the bags, that's just a mark of a bad baseball team. Olson got real fortunate to have that 2-year run that he had after Freddie Freeman left. But he's pressing. He's an average contact hitter who lived and died by the long ball, and baseball took the long ball away. Here we are, bud. Like, this is why I understand there was probably nothing the Braves could do to keep Freddie Freeman on this team. He and his wife just wanted out. I don't believe the story about the double cross from his agent or any of that. I think Freddie just wanted to go LA because he wanted to go back home and his wife wanted to be there. But this is why, even though you did get 2 great years out of Matt Olson, I was still saying at some point That trade's going to, or that move's going to bite you in the ass. At some point, you're going to miss Freddie Freeman and Cole Bryson. I think that point is right now, because tell me this team doesn't need a guy who hits for doubles consistently, and B, a guy who can grab everybody else on that team by the shirt collar, shake them around and say, get your head out of your ass and let's play baseball, which right now, we got a bunch of fun-loving dudes in the locker room, but Matt Olson ain't that guy, and frankly, I don't think we have him right now.
No, we're missing them. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Also, before we get to the phone lines real quick, Rob, there is an advanced metric out there called a whiff rate. It's where you swing and you miss, right? Swinging strike percentage. Whiff rate equals swings and misses divided by total swings. And among league leaders in whiff rate are Matt Olson and Austin Riley. So that advanced metric would say, you're right on the contact. The Braves certainly struggling there. Matt Kraft in the comments still defending the Braves. He's always the defender of the Braves. I think he's on their payroll, by the way. Let's go to the phone lines during this Rob Brown Show takeover. Jersey Joe is up first. Jersey Joe, you are on the afternoon Rob Brown Show takeover where two shows collide. What's up, Jersey Joe?
For the record, I didn't tell him to call it that.
Meet the Mets. Come on out and meet the Mets. Bring your family, bring your wife. About to have the time of your life.
Jersey Joe, I didn't know you were a Mets fan. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, die hard, baby, die hard.
But the Mets, hey, I will say this, just like Rob said the Phillies do, I mean, who is known for late season collapses as good as, I mean, the Mets they're the king of that. Maybe you're singing that tune a little too early.
They're due. I mean, every team is due,
Well,
I don't know.
I would point out, fellas, and I think it's fair to do so. I would point out the fact that the Mets, through the first 33% of the season, the Mets got better pitching out of the rotation than anybody expected them to. Like, damn good pitching. That is going to come back to the fold. So my question, Joe, then becomes, can you get Juan Soto up there and playing consistently? Can you take advantage of Francisco Lindor, who has been an absolute stud for you guys? Can you take the guys that have been good ball players and elevate them to the next level? Because if the answer is yeah, I think the Mets can hang around. I think they've got enough pop. And again, even if the pitching does come back to the fold, they will get to a point where they can rely on the bats a little bit. And I think you're very, very close to it. But the Mets are absolutely a threat to win this division, and anybody who says they're not's just wrong.
No, they are. And Jersey Joe, I'll say real quick, the difference is, in my mind, the Mets are getting the most out of their guys who are supposed to be producing. He mentioned Juan Soto, but also Alonso and Lindor. I mean, they lead the league in a lot of offensive statistics right now. On-base percentage of .333, a slugging percentage of .418, and a team batting average of .252. By the way, all three of those categories they lead the Atlanta Braves in. So they're guys that are supposed to be stepping up and delivering when the lights are bright. They're doing that. It's really simple. The Braves guys who are supposed to be stepping up, who have that championship pedigree, they're not doing that. The Mets, and not to mention the Mets pitching staff right now is absolutely on fire. A team ERA of 3.45. So the Mets are a good team. There's no doubt. I hate to admit it, but they're a really good team right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for the call, man.
Okay.
And not enough's talked about the acquisition of Clay Holmes, either. I mean, they've got a really good staff, a really good pitching staff. I don't know. Hopefully, we'll see that Mets collapse like we always do. Lefty Tiger on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, do we think it could be a snit problem on top of everything, or is he working with what he has? We'll get back to that because I do want to touch on that. But let's go to the phone lines, right back to the phone lines where Dewey wants to weigh in. What's up, Dewey?
Yes. Hi, Rob Brown.
Hi, Dewey.
Suck, but my probation officer told me to be nice to you because he watches the show and he says to be nice to you. So I got to be nice to you from now on. Unfortunately, I have to agree with you. The Mets, they're too good. The Mets are too good. The Phillies, they won 20 out of 24 games. They're going to sweep the Braves. The Braves are horrible. Last night was horrible.
Horrible.
Matt Olson is not a leader. He needs to be traded. Done with something. He's not a leader. They gave up Freddie Freeman, and look what he's still thriving. They gave up Max Fried. Look what he's doing, 1.1 something ERA. And Stanley Swanson, I think he's doing good too. And all these other people. It's time to fire Snicker and fire everyone who's it's just time to fire them.
Get rid of them all, Dewey says. Thanks for the call, Dewey.
It's time for the rebuild. It's time.
You just had a rebuild.
Well, they're not going to get together. They're 4 games now behind 500, and it's not happening. If you look at the wild card standings, they're at least 5 games behind the 3rd wild card spot. It ain't going to happen this year. Bad Crap, you can sing a song about how much the Braves sucked. Oh.
Thanks, Dewey. That's what we call Rob sensational on this show.
I would agree. First off, shout out Dewey's probation officer.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate those. I appreciate you stopping the mean text I was getting there for about 2 months every single 6:15 a.m. Shout out Dewey's probation officer. There is something about Brian Snitker that I think is interesting.
Let's touch on that. Yeah, let's go there. Let's go to
Yeah,
Snit.
there is something about that is interesting. And I will agree with Dewey to some degree. I do not think that Snit has any interest in leading this team. I don't think Snit has any interest in really being involved. I've said this a number of times. If they turn that camera on the bullpen when the Braves are in a 1-run tight game, and I look at Brian Snitker, look like he's 95% of the way to take the afternoon to siesta, I'm going to lose my gosh darn mind.
Yeah.
There's also been plenty of spots where I'm trying to figure out what the decision-making process is for who's coming out of the pen at what time, because it's like there have been spots, including last night, where he's bringing Montero out. I don't have a problem with Montero being out of the pen and being part of the closing rotation, Cole Bryson, but it's like you're throwing him against the heart of the Phillies lineup when it's all bad matchups, just metric statistics-wise. I think we are at a point where Brian Snitker won us a World Series, and the Braves' Alex Anthopoulos feels like Brian Snitker has the right to call his shot as far as leaving. I think at this point it is accepted by most of us that Brian Snitker, win, lose, or draw, is done at the end of this year. So I think they're just going to let him coach it out. I think they're just going to let him finish out this season, and they'll let the cards be what they are, because the reality is there are moves that can be made. No, Matt Olson is not one of them, because he is a hot or cold guy. You get him on a 20, 25, 30 game streak where he's getting a dinger every other game. You know, he's getting a hit every 3 at-bats. Maybe that can boost you a little bit. I do think we have a very interesting situation developing a catcher between Sean Murphy and Drake Baldwin.
100%.
And
100%.
you have yourself potentially a trade asset maybe you did not know you had coming into the season there. Maybe
With
there's
Sean
a bat
Murphy
out there somewhere you can go get. But at the end of the day, again, at some point you're going to be too far behind the 8 ball to catch up, even if you do make that move. And I think because of the fact that Snit is done at the end of this year, or at least that's the common perception, CB, I think the Braves are just going to let him walk out. Hey, thanks for that ring. We're going to let you call your shot. We don't want to abandon you midway through a season. And unfortunately, we all get to pay for it. But at the end of the day, bud, like, you're all professional baseball players. Like, figure it out. Somebody step up. Somebody be the leader in the locker room. Nobody's doing it right now. Can't be Marcel. Too much going on away from the field. Should be Matt Olson, but how can a guy who is going 0-59 in his last 6 games be that guy? Your only hope is that it is Ronald Acuna Jr., but hey, man, we're 4 or 5 games deep into the return of the NL MVP from a couple of years ago, and like, he's hitting the ball well, but you don't see this clubhouse was so built on vibes over the last couple of years with Arcia and all the Ronald and all these young guys that are out there having a good time, that I don't think anybody has the ability to step up and be that guy, be that locker room guy, be that leader.
I would also throw in Austin Riley there. I mean, I think Austin Riley, I thought Austin Riley at one point had potential of being one of the best ever. Like, I was really, really high, and I'm still high on him. I love Austin Riley. I think he can, I think we're not going to put him in that same conversation as who, but I do think he has potential at that position to be one of the best for the Atlanta Braves. I will say, though, to your point, Rob, to Lefty Tiger's point, I do think it's time that you may just say, you know what, let's move on from Snit, whether it's him walking or you pulling the plug. And going back to your point, in the game of baseball at the professional level, A manager of a ball club should not decide and dictate the ebbs and flows of a season to the point Brian Snitker has. I don't like his in-game decision-making. I think there's a lot of criticism, not only with the in-game decision-making, but how he handles things off the field as well. Look, he did win a World Series in 2021. There's no denying that. However, before, Rob, he was bailed out at the trade deadline, he was below 500 in 2021 as well. So, is he a good coach? Is he a good manager? I think he is. But Alex Anthopoulos, in my mind, those who made those decisions in 2021 also deserve a ton of credit for that Braves ring that we're so proud of from just a few years ago. But let's just call it a buck, like you always say, Rob. I mean, they were not good before he was bailed out by AA. So, look, I love Snit. I think he's been great for this friend. I mean, he's been with the Braves for, 55 years? That's no exaggeration. I really do think he's been with the organization that long, going all the way back to the Rome Braves and the Greenville Braves. He's been around forever. But I do think it's time for some fresh blood to get these leaders on the team performing like leaders. I know Dewey sometimes is a little bit out there. I think Dewey's right on the leadership. I don't love what I've seen from leadership from this Braves team. It is a little bit disappointing. We don't have that veteran guy that's leading us like I thought Riley could, like you thought Matt Olson could.
There was a situation a couple of weeks ago that, I'm not going to say it's where I planted my flag and said this is the last straw, but there was a situation, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, where the Braves were bottom 9, 1-run game, guys on, and they had to go to a pinch hitter in the 9th. And there were 3 guys on the bench. Sean Murphy was on the bench, who was playing the backup to Baldwin in that game. They had Eli White, who was on the bench. And Eli White's been a pleasant little surprise for this team as well.
He has been.
And at
other
the
than
time,
Friday, other than what he did Friday night.
Other than what he did Friday. And I'm not going to hold one game against anybody.
Sure.
Eli White's been very good.
Yeah.
And then I think and Eddie Rosario was on the bench when he was with the squad at the time. And they go, all right, we're going to find out who Snit is going to pinch hit when we come back. We come back, it's Eddie Rosario, who in his last 5 games was like 0 for 8 with 5 Ks. While you got Sean Murphy, who's an RBI guy over there. And you got Eli White, who at the time was on like a 4 or 5 game hit streak. And he goes with Rosario. And in the post-game press conference, they said, Coach, why did you go Eddie Rosario there? And his answer, Cole Bryce, and I wish I was making this up, his answer was, we were trying to recapture a little bit of that magic. Snit, it is 2025. Yeah. That magic was in 2021. First off, and let me make this point about it clear, Snit. Momentum is real. Chemistry is real. Magic is not real. That's magic is something that we use to describe when there is an unusual set of circumstances that jumps out at us. I've stood on the edge of the Grand Canyon and felt magic. I've stood inside the cathedral at Notre Dame and heard a choir singing. It felt like magic. I have watched my team win a Super Bowl. It felt like magic, but magic isn't real. And I understand he was probably using it that way, CB, but whether he was using it literally, metaphorically, whatever, the reality is he passed up on 2 guys that have been hitting the ball well to put in Eddie Rosario, who was not on a baseball team 2 weeks before that, and threw him up there to see if he could replicate 2021 in 2025. Yeah, that was the moment that I went, we're not getting it done with Brian Snitker. I understand you want to give him a farewell tour. Thanks for the ring. I'll never forget that night. I got hammered in my apartment that night because I was so happy because I never thought I'd sign another one. Thanks for the memories. Listen, put a big-ass poster of Snit's face out on center field. Name it Brian Snitker Field at Truist Park, whatever you want to do. But we're not winning with this guy calling the shots. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And I feel exactly what you feel. Alex Anthopoulos won the World Series with the Jock Peterson trade and all those other trades that he made up to the run. Nailed the chemistry, and Snit took advantage of that. And good on him for doing it. You still got to coach the team. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Snit's the reason we got that ring.
Let's get into the NBA Conference Finals, Rob. The Rob Brown Show takeover on a Wednesday afternoon where 2 shows collide. We'll hop into the NBA Finals conversation. That's next. what's new on this Wednesday. We talk about the Braves and in actuality of what's happening and what's going on. And Matt Kraft says we're crazy, we're wrong, we're never answering his questions. I don't know what we've done to jump right back into this circle that we somehow jump into every single day with the Atlanta Braves. It's just like it doesn't matter what you say. Matt Kraft's going to be mad about something you said about the Atlanta Braves. I don't know how much they're paying you mad, but I would love to have a bite at that salary. We're going to dive into the NBA playoffs. First, let's go back to the phone lines. JD Tolo. JD wants to join the conversation. What's up, JD?
Hey, what's good, gentlemen? How are we doing today?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Rob, my friend, how are you, sir?
What's up, JD? How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, my man. Well, first of all, let me start off with this. You know how sometimes people will say, with all due respect, and then they'll say something disrespectful?
I do.
That
I
is
do.
not
Are
what
you
I'm
about
going
to
to
no
do.
disrespect me?
No, not at all. Not at all. So I wanted to get it on the record. I wanted to clear the air. So my comments on the Tolo takeover last Thursday were, and I quote, when you ask me for specific interaction and I text in about that specific interaction and you don't read the text, I get a little bit upset.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for 5 years now, man. We know how the text line works. I understand that not all text will be read, Rob. I totally understand that. But I have never been late on a text or anything like that. So, Rob, you know I love you. I love all of the Nissan Armadas, whatever it is. What do we call it? The Nissan Armadas or whatever. I love all of you guys. So, I honestly, like I said, I just wanted to clear the air. What I said is sometimes I think it, and I've got two specific, and we'll lead right into y'all's NBA talk. There was one where you asked for our team's predictions. What do you think our team's football predictions will be? And I texted in, and then I had to listen to your show for like another hour for you not to read my text. And then there was one about the NBA MVP, talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And my take on that was I think the NBA painted themselves into a corner there because they have this rule, unwritten rule, if you will, where the same guy can't win MVP all the time, even if he's deserving of it. So they had no choice not to pick Joker again. They had to go with SGA. And so I'll let you answer, Rob. Was that a bad text?
No, it was not. In fact, JD, I can tell you that I actually do remember that text because there is one thing that one more thing that you do need to know about Rob Brown, and that is that Rob Brown is absolutely ADHD and will oftentimes write down things to get back to and then completely forget, even though I just wrote them down. I remember that text because I agreed with that text. I thought it was a great text, and I actually intended to circle back around to it. So, JD, I will tell you that there is no water to go under no bridge, buddy. I want you to know that when I came on the show with the boys last week, I was goofing off and having a good time because that's what I like to do on the radio. They give me money to act like an idiot. I'm going to act like an idiot and take the money. So, no, we're good, man. I wasn't worried about it. And I spent some time this weekend thinking, reflecting, contemplating, and pondering, JD. And I want you to know that I have a little Post-it note on the computer that I look at for the text now that says, check your text, dummy. So I want you to know, JD, that you have shaped the culture of the show moving forward. Congratulations.
Well, hey, and honestly, that's all I wanted to hear is that I'm right. And so I really appreciate that.
And the fact, Rob, that you have the ability to make JD upset, that you should feel very valuable. You really should.
I mean, they give me money to do this for a living, Cole Bryce, and I'm clearly very valuable.
100%.
Yeah.
JD, thanks for the call, man.
Oh yeah. Well, wait, hold on, wait, don't run me yet.
Okay, go ahead.
One thing, so I can get you to your NBA talk, and
Yeah.
I'll leave you guys with this question. To me, the Pacers, and I could almost say the Knicks, with all of their ridiculous comebacks and things like that this season, to me, it feels like one of those two teams is destined to win. Obviously, now the Pacers have a 3-1 lead, and it's kind of them now. But I feel like the Pacers, all the stats they've accumulated with these crazy comebacks, I feel like they are destined or fated, if you will, to win the NBA championship. And so, Rob, love you guys. Cole, love you guys. Y'all be blessed. And Corn Chip and all you guys, stop coming after me about talking about Rob's text.
Ha! Thanks, JD. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Let's dive into the NBA playoffs. Don't have much time in this break left or in this segment left, but Rob, want to quickly get to the two series happening. Last night, the Pacers went up 3-1 over the New York Knicks, 130-121. Indiana just looks like a force to be reckoned with. Jalen Brunson had a good game, 31 points, but Tyrese Halliburton was a little bit better for the Indiana Pacers last night. You know what I don't think people are talking about enough, Rob, and when you talk about why the Pacers are so successful, I think again, kind of going back to the Braves conversation with team building like they did in 2021, I think you have to give this this Indiana front office a tremendous amount of credit. When you look at this roster, I mean, these are guys that have not only been there before. You forget that there was one player that was in Toronto, right, that has a ring, that knows what it takes to win, but you've got guys that are unselfish. That's the biggest thing about the Indiana Pacers, in my mind, that contributes to their success. Yeah, they have Tyrese Halliburton, but this might be the most unselfish basketball team left in the NBA playoffs.
So first off, I agree entirely. Somebody the other day said that Tyrese Halliburton plays basketball like Steve Urkel in that episode where he takes over his high school team, and I can't look at him any differently. And also, it's exactly correct. If you go back and watch that episode, it's fantastic. But what I like about Tyrese is that he can go get a triple-double because he is the type of player, and you can see it in the game, as unorthodox as his offense is.
Yeah.
He is just as happy to toss an apple as he is to knock down a field goal from anywhere on the floor. He's just as happy about throwing a court-length assist as he is knocking down a step-back three on anybody. And there's really nobody on that team that I don't feel that way about. The other thing that I think you've got to give credit to the Pacers for is being the most appropriately named team in the NBA, Cole, because they do play with pace. Every game that they have played so far against the Knicks, if they have 100 possessions or more, they win the basketball game because what they're doing is wearing down the Knicks. And I can prove that because in the rest of the playoffs, the New York Knicks were averaging about 7.8 to 8.2 players that touch the floor per game, meaning they roll 5 starters, and there is never a point where there are more than 3 of them on the bench. And in the last 2 games, the Knicks have thrown at least 10 players on the floor. Tom Thibodeau played 10 players in the first half last night. You know what that tells me? The Knicks' legs are tired. The stamina monster is getting them a little bit right now, and that is because the Pacers love to move the ball up and down the floor, have conditioned themselves to move the ball up and down the floor, but that only works, Cole Bryson, Cole Bryson, I don't know why the hell I said that. That only works, Cole, if all 5 guys on the floor at any given moment are part of that. You get one guy on the Pacers who is sloughing off a little bit, and that whole get up and down and wear them out methodology goes right out of the window. So the Pacers have any given moment, no matter which 5 are on the floor, they've got 5 guys that are bought in. They've got 5 guys that are bought in to attacking the defense, on the defense, rotating on their defensive assignments, 5 guys that are committed to, all right, somebody grabbed a board, 3 of you make a sprint to the far side. 1 of you get to the middle and help. Let's move the ball up and down the floor. Let's make them sprint back to the defense and wear them down. Any given time, they got 5 guys that are all bought into that. And the Knicks, you can see it, are worn down because of it. Cobra, there's only one team left in the NBA playoffs that I think can compete with the pace of the Pacers, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. That finals, if it's what we get, and it looks like it is, buddy, that finals is going to be solid, and I'm betting the over in every bleeping game, pal.
Yeah, I think it's what we'll get. I did say at the beginning of the conference finals, though, Rob, my heart wanted New York and Minnesota. My heart wanted that. My head kind of told me that it would be Minnesota and Indiana, or Indiana and obviously Oklahoma City. But I told Diesel, I said, my heart wants to see New York and the rising superstar of Ant-Man. I wanted to see that so badly. Now, to be clear, I'll take the Pacers and I'll take the Oklahoma City Thunder as well because, to your point, they are the best team. I will say Indiana's depth's phenomenal. You have guys, Rob, and I know you touch on this on the night show as well, you have guys off of the bench of Indiana that absolutely the fans don't know his name. The common NBA fans don't know their name. They absolutely deliver. They have a mailman step up every single night. And that's the difference because they have guys that deliver. And you look at what happened, the bench play. There will be somebody off the bench every night for Indiana that steps up. You don't know how to pronounce their name. You've never heard of them unless you're an Indiana Pacers fan, right? And I just think that combined with their coaching, Rick Carlisle doesn't get near enough credit in my mind. I think that goes into why this Indiana team so successful. Let's get into on the other side, Minnesota and Oklahoma City. You mentioned them. Let's get into that next. Let's get caught up on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line before we get fussed at. Rob Brown Show Takeover continues right here on the Fan Upstate. Let's see. Texter says, answer for JD on the stream. Johnny Sweeney is the younger brother of Upstate head coach Kane Sweeney. How about that? Did not know that. Thank you for that, Texter. Texter from the 431 says, I hope witches that listen to the show cast a spell on Rob for saying magic isn't real. John Dog texts the show and says, JD, please stop whining. Bitter party of one. Buckeye Mike texts the show and says, tell JD to stop whining. I text into both shows, and they don't read all of my text either. Love both shows, on the road all day. Love you, John Dog. Buckeye Mike, appreciate the text. All of you Tolos out there, you're the best, even if you do disagree with us. Texter says, Rob, while you're there, please teach Cole how to type without sending echoes of these keys tapping across the upstate. There is one Tolo that has a problem with my typing that sits under the microphone, the keyboard, Rob, that sits under the microphone. Evidently, it does eke him a little bit.
I want you to know, Cole Bryson, that I have not just been accused of being a violent typer, but I cannot work on a computer if my producer or my wife are around, because both of them get ridiculous upset with how loud that I type. So if you are drawing more attention to that than I am, bud, I suspect we're going to be replacing that keyboard sometime in the next few weeks.
It's a loud keyboard. So it's funny, Rob, you know, you've sat here. There's a loud keyboard, and then the white keyboard underneath is a quiet keyboard. There are certain keyboards that have big keys, big, thick keys. And when you type them, it's loud. I'm sorry, Tola. I'm sorry, texters. I'll try to be more quiet when typing on the keyboard. Rob, real quick, we only have a couple minutes left in this hour. Appreciate you hopping on with me while Diesel is on vacation. Timberwolves Thunder, I told you a minute ago, my heart so badly wanted to see Ant-Man step up, rise to occasion, and be that next guy in the NBA. However, SGA said, nah, man, it's me right now. It's my time to shine. As good as Anthony Edwards is, I don't think we've given SGA enough credit. This guy is on the way to becoming one of the best players, if not the best player in the NBA, very, very quickly.
Yeah, I'm not gonna disagree. I am also, though, Cole, not gonna let go of the free throw merchant moniker that's been tagged on him. And let me be real clear.
Yeah,
I don't blame him for it. If the refs are going to give you something that helps your team win, you take it. All right.
Yeah.
If you're going to get calls because you contort your body into weird positions because Nikola Jokic breathed on you when you were driving to the rack, and they're going to give you free throws, you take the gosh darn free throws. I'm not hating on SGA. I'm saying the NBA needs to have a conversation with the officials and get that changed and get that fixed. And I understand you want to promote your superstars. You want SGA going out there going for, 35, 12, and 10 every single night if you can get it. But it can't be by sacrificing the integrity of the game. Now, putting that to the side, let's really give Oklahoma City credit for what they've done in this series. You and I were both talking going into the series, Ant-Man v. SGA, what a matchup. But the Thunder said, whoa. We got four other guys and they play defense. So what happens?
100%.
Every time that Anthony Edwards gets the ball at the top of the key, he's got a world-class defender on him. And then if he drives to the left, they just rotate him off to another top-tier defender. And then if he drives down to the corner, they rotate him off to another. They have put together 5 top-tier defenders on their starting 5 and a bunch of really good defensive role players coming off the bench, which means that if Anthony Edwards is on the floor for a minute, he's got to bust his ass for a minute to kind of produce his season averages. The Thunder came into this thing with a defensive strategy. Yeah, they're winning games by putting $138 on the board, and they deserve credit. That offense is incredible. But, and this is why I love a Pacers Thunder finals, because the Thunder came into this thing with the defensive strategy of, we're going to wear Ant out. Somebody else is going to have to step up. It ain't going to be Rudy Gobert because he ain't that guy on the offensive side of the glass. So knowing they don't have a 5 that they can go to if they draw our defense out, let's play our defense extended. Let's hand Ant-Man off to a new defender. Let's wear those legs out and make it to where he can't do it alone. and we don't think anybody else has got it in them to help him. And so far, that philosophy has been right. I like the T-Wolves. I'm with you. Honestly, Rudy Gobert is the best defensive 5 in the league. But, buddy, I need to be getting 20 out of my big man the way that the play defense. And if I'm not going to, I can't win this series. That's all.
But what about like we talk about SGA, and I don't think people talk about Jalen Williams enough, the Cali kid. Like, oh, my word, what he's doing is exceptional. But Chet Holmgren, Rob, and Alex Caruso defensively, I don't know, like – when you look back at NBA Finals series, you always have those one or two guys who are like that defensive catalyst, that defensive cornerstone, right? Then you have guys who surprise you. Like, I remember back to the Cleveland Golden State series when Kyrie got hurt. If you remember, Matthew Dellavedova had to step in. And Matthew Dellavedova couldn't score, you know, if he were on a ladder, right, a 10-foot ladder. He wasn't an offensive threat, but Matthew Dellavedova could play defense. Alex Caruso has that same scrappiness about him that has allowed this Oklahoma City team to not only have the best defensive rating in the league at 107.5, but they also lead the league in steals and opponent field goal, 10.3 steals per game. Think about that. 43.6 field goal opponent percentage, and they also have a historic net rating of plus 12.8. It's on pace to be the second best in NBA history, trailing who? The 1995 Chicago Bulls. So this team, Rob's not only good, they're historically good defensively. 30 seconds or less while we run to this break. Your thoughts, NBA Finals, what do we see and who do you like?
I think you're going to end up with the Pacers and the Thunder, and I got to tell you, I'm kind of being walked over onto the side. I love the Pacers. I have enjoyed watching them play. They're a fun team to play. Tyrese Halliburton may genuinely be my favorite player in the league right now because, to me, he's everything SGA is, but an even better assist man and does not throw himself around the court like there's mortar shells falling in the paint every time he makes a drive to the rack, and I got a lot of respect for that. So I really like this Pacers team, but, man, I'm a believer in this Thunder team now. Like, and it's the defensive numbers that you just gave me a second ago. It is the top of the line defensive numbers. Now, in fairness, the New York Knicks have similar defensive stats, and the Pacers are wearing them down. And I do think that is a threat to the Thunder, but I'm a believer in this team now, man. Like, you've got the best offensive player in the game, whether it's because he's a free throw merchant or not is irrelevant. Best offensive player in the game right now. Chet Holmgren has really grown into himself in this series. You mentioned Julian. You mentioned some of these other role guys that all know where they fit in. All I'm going to say is I think you're getting a Pacers-Thunder final. And Cole Bryson, I think that thing's going 7, and I think that there is a chance. And I try my best not to overreact on the radio. I try not to knee jerk. I try not to get out ahead of my skates here. But I think there's a chance this thing goes 7. And I think there's a chance that you and I, 10 years from now, are talking about one of the greatest NBA Finals series we've ever watched, because I think they will be going toe to toe for 7 games and a lot of 1 or 2 possession games in there.
Rob Brown, you're the best. Always appreciate you, man. Have a safe rest of your evening and whatever you find yourself doing, and make sure you read your text, man.
Pleasure's mine, buddy. Let's go, Canes. Get them back. We just got to win one, and we're right back in here. All right? We're not dead yet. It's 3-1. A lot of work to do.
Sounds good.
Trust the process.
Sounds good. Rob Brown of The Rob Brown Show on the stream. He's the best. You heard him right here on the Fan Upstate. A little Rob Brown Show takeover. The Power Hour, final hour of the show. We're going to dive into Greg Sankey. That's next.
The Rich Eisen Show, tomorrow at noon, only on
exactly know what your what your last 4 or 5 texts meant. I really don't know. I'm reading text from the 843 about the Tolos complaining about the text line. I see a couple words we can't say on the radio. I appreciate you texting the show, but sometimes our text line breaks up a long text message into 4 or 5, or even in your case, 6 different texts. So it is a little bit difficult to read, but appreciate the text messages on the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line. All of the interaction today, Tolos, has been incredible. A lot better than yesterday. You Tolos were a little slow, I guess. The Memorial Day hangover yesterday, but a lot of interaction on the text line, the chat as well today. You can watch the show, hop in on the chat right now. 185 Tolos watching the show on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Brother Contreras shouts out from the chat, and he is watching the show, and he says that it's his 34th birthday today. So shout out to a listener, a Tolo, who listens and watches the show quite often. Happy birthday. Happy 34th birthday, Brother Contreras, who watches the show from the Bronx. So we appreciate that, man. We always appreciate you. Happy birthday. Getting old, right? Getting up there. DB says, happy birthday, BC. What's up, DB? Good to hear from you. Good to see you in the chat. Hope you're well. Madcraft says he might call the show. That would be wild in a second if he can get together the minutes, I guess, to call the show. We'll see if that happens. Madcraft wants to, I guess not bury the hatchet, but us finally find a place to land, if you will, on this Braves conversation. We'll see if it happens or not. DB, I hadn't heard from you in a few days, man. Have you been up in the air? DB's a pilot, a Tolo who's a pilot. That's what he does for a living. How did you, DB? I don't think I saw you on the stream on yesterday or on Tuesday. How'd you like the 600? I was a big fan of it. I know you're a race guy. Let me know what you thought of the 600. So much to get to the rest of the week. I do want to let you Tolos know that if you're still listening, I know it's in the 6 o'clock hour now. A lot of you have already made your way home. Hopefully you've turned it on and left it on. But I do want to let you know that I have a friend who is awesome, who has got me in contact with a guest that you will hear on the show at some point this week or next week. I'm not sure when. It's one of the most... We've had some big-time guests on the show. This one would be big. It'd be real big, but it also would be one that I would look forward to because of who it is and his personality. So I don't know when it'll happen, but coming down the pipe, we do have a really awesome guest that I've been connected with. I was texting back and forth with him earlier today. He's willing to come on the show. Trying to shoot for, next couple of weeks. Maybe it's this week. Maybe it's next week. I don't know. He has, as you can imagine, a pretty busy schedule. But at some point, I'll let you know when I confirm it. I'll tell you who it is and what day we'll have him on. But looking forward to that. Looking forward to that. That's a reason for you Tolos out there to turn it on and leave it on. Somebody asked on the Facebook comment, what is Tolo? That stands for turn on, leave on. That's what we ask you to do each and every day right here on the Fan Upstate. We also call our loyal listeners like Madcraft, like DB, like Brother Contreras, like JD, and John, everybody who listens to the show, we call them Tolos. That's what they are. Turn it on and leave it on. Phone lines, text line, it's all open to start the final hour of the show, the power hour, per se, on this Wednesday edition of Wire to Wire. I'm going to play a scene from my favorite movie while I screen the call, and then I think it's Madcraft, but I want to make sure. Be right back. Is that you, Mad? Is that you, Mad? Matt, is that you? Come on. All right. We do have Madcraft on the line. As if you just tuned in and you're wondering why I'm playing the Matthew McConaughey scene from one of the best movies ever, I will pull the curtain back. I can't screen calls live on air. It's against FCC violations to screen a call live on the air. So when I'm solo, when Diesel's on vacay, when I'm on vacay and Diesel's solo, I am answering the phones. I'm running the board. I'm running the stream. I'm running Wide Orbit. I'm running the text line, the phone lines, about 12, 15 different things going on. And that's why I played. I love that movie, man. It's hard to beat that scene right there. I love that. I mean, that's one of those movies you watch about, once a year, right? Once a year, I'd say. It's time to watch Wolf of Wall Street. It really is. It's going to be about that time where I am needing to watch it. It's a good one. All right, phone lines are open. Tolos, if you want to get in on the conversation, you can do so. Madcraft's about to. The text line, the Hub City Spartanburgers text line is open as well at 844-326-3663. Anything we have discussed today is on the table. Greg Sankey, NBA, Braves, Clemson Regionals, Acuna's return, anything on the table for you, Tolos, in the final hour, the power hour of the show right here on the Fan Upstate. Let's go to the phone lines where Madcraft, he says he does not want to bury the hatchet, but he will make a concession. I am not sure if it'll be successful or not, but Madcraft, I don't know if at the end of the call you will admit that the Braves do stink, but we'll give it a shot, right?
Well, absolutely. I'm going to make a concession to you, and I'm going to explain this whole situation and why we're having it.
Okay.
And really, it's a fact of it. What we're doing is equivocation. Like we're talking past one another because we started this debate without knowing exactly what the other was stating. So
okay.
I'm going to make a concession to you, right?
I like concessions.
Tell you that, yeah, I will tell you this. If you want to say that the Braves started 0-7 and that at that given time that they were underperforming what their capabilities were, then I will say, yeah, they sucked for what their capabilities were. I will concede you that, yeah, they sucked. And I was trying not to say that because at any point in time that you asked, because it would make it seem, it's kind of a cornering question, because it would make me seem wrong. But my point was that if you think that the roster of the Braves sucked, which was where I was coming to from the very beginning, so I was kind of making the point of, okay, well, if you played those first 7 games again 10 times, what's the likelihood that this roster goes 0-7 that much? And I was, that was where I was coming from. But I will concede, I will agree with you that in that 0-7 start, and they're even underperforming their capabilities now.
Yeah.
But I think that my point originally, just as a whole, was I don't believe that the roster team technically sucks.
Okay.
Right? I think they would be capable. It's kind of the same thing as saying, okay, well, if Saquon Barkley goes out in week 1 and puts the ball on the ground twice, 2 turnovers, 30 yards rushing, no touchdowns, he had a terrible game, but we don't think he sucks, right?
Well, I think he sucked that night, and that's the biggest thing. And maybe that's where you and I come to this concession is when the Braves started 0-7, and even today, I do think the Braves suck today. Does this roster?
Yeah.
Does the roster suck in terms of their career average and what they're capable of? I don't think that. And if that was the way I made it seem, I do apologize for that. Now, I will tell you, the longer the Braves suck, it does make you wonder, okay, what is Matt Olson as a player? And I know you brought up his career average a minute ago on the stream, but the longer somebody sucks at their job, the longer or the more thoughts you have, the more thoughts creep into your mind of, okay, do they suck right now, or is this who they are? Because Matt Olson, look, he's a good player, but he's also shown in his career that he is an incredibly streaky player, and that can't be denied. That's statistically proven. So, yeah, I think they sucked at the beginning of the season. I think they suck right now. I don't think Ronald Acuna Jr. They're not playing great. Do the players do they suck in their careers? And no, but I do think right now, like, it is I guess from my my heart of hearts, making this claim a month and a half ago or whatever it was when the Brave season started, it all comes from disappointment in the team, and that's where I think it roots from.
I completely agree, and that's why I'm saying I'm making that concession because I think that we were coming from two different points of view, so we were never going to agree. So I think when people were saying, like, I kept jumping around, and then I said, well, no, you're jumping around, I think we actually both were jumping around, and we just didn't know it because we were talking about two different things.
Yeah.
So we'll bury the hatchet. I'll concede that to you. I will agree with you in the way that you were wording it, that the Braves sucked at that given time. They suck right now, and they're not playing great. So I'll agree with you on that, and we can leave it there.
We can leave it there. It's great that we have conceded and buried the hatchet, but I will admit it's not as fun.
Oh, no. Hey, listen, I'm still going to be around. I'm still going to call out your bad takes.
I don't know. So this is what I'm wondering now.
I want to talk about the Snitker situation.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. What Snitker? No, go ahead. I was getting a drink of water, by the way.
Okay.
The Snitker situation. What about it? What about it?
I was trying to figure out your logic on this, and I want to land my plane real quick, just in case somebody else was to get on. But your logic for the AA situation, you said AA bailed him out.
Yeah, I think so.
But see, I don't believe that. And I guess my logic and reasoning behind it is if we're going to say that Snitker is the problem, like Snitker sucked, and therefore the Braves sucked, and then AA came to town and finally got him some talent.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the Braves, went like a decade of playoffs and even got a World Series championship out of it. So was the problem – like, what's the problem now?
No, let me ask you this. I'm with you.
Anything?
I understand. I do understand where you're coming from. My question to you, though, would be to answer your question, I'll ask you this question. In 2021, if Alex Anthopoulos doesn't do what Alex Anthopoulos did, do you believe Brian Snitker leads that Braves team to a World Series?
Oh, no.
So
I completely agree.
How much credit do we? How much credit in 2021? I guess in order for you and I to find or come to an agreement on this topic in 2021, how much credit did Brian Snitker deserve for the championship, and how much of that credit did AA deserve?
Well, I think in 2021, I'm going to go 50-50. But
not me.
In this year, I actually think that it's going to be more weighted on Brian. However, I would argue that it's interesting to note that all Braves fans felt very uneasy and upset about AA's moves this offseason.
Or lack of moves. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I would argue, I guess that's kind of my original question was, whose fault is it, I guess, right now? Is it Snitker's or is it AA?
No, I think there's blame. I think today there's blame on both. I think there's blame on both today. AA didn't do much in the offseason, and that's why going into the season, I wasn't real optimistic. If you remember, I wasn't real optimistic going into the season. I know that we have players. I know that we have good guys on the team, but when you don't do much in free – by the way, you know who did do a lot in free agency? The Mets. You know who did do a lot in free – the Phillies. And look where they are. So I agree with you that AA's to blame, but those are, in my mind, two different conversations. The 2021, I go 75-25. I give AA 75% credit. I'd give Snit probably 25% credit. The reason I say that is today, Major League Baseball – and again, this goes back to how much blame does Snit deserve today? How much is Snit at fault for Matt Olson's woes? So I do give Snit some blame. I can't stand his in-game management at times, but at the same time, I have to be fair with him. Matt Olson stinking it up right now is not his fault.
Yeah, I completely agree. And look, I'll agree with you too that he has made some questionable decisions, but that is, managers are going to make silly decisions every now and then. The problem is we need to make sure that he doesn't continue to make those.
Yeah.
But anyways, I appreciate the call.
Good call. This was good, but it wasn't as fun, I will admit. It's good. Breaking news, Cole and Madcraft have conceded and buried the hatchet. Madcraft made a concession. And as you depart, what is your favorite concession food from a ball game?
Oh man, I'm a nacho guy, man. I like cheese,
I do too.
chili.
Yeah, I like the cheese that just comes out of the can. You're okay with that?
I'm okay with anything. Cheese is cheese, man.
High standards on the cheese. Thanks, Madcraft. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. How about that, man? I know that we might need to replay that segment every hour for the next 100 days because a lot of you Tolos do check out, around 6 o'clock. You're home with your families and doing family stuff, rightfully so. And maybe, just maybe, the news hasn't broke yet and the nation hasn't heard that we have finally, after I don't know how many days has the Braves season been going on. When was the first Braves game this season? Let's look it up. This is great live radio. In 2025, I think the first Braves game was March the 27th. March the 27th. So, breaking news for, let's see, how many days has this been? This has been 1 month and 28 days ago, right? We have almost 2 months. Madcraft and I have been feuding, and Diesel's not here to see it or hear it. That's disappointing as well. The feud has finally come to an end, right? It's like a big political feud that drags out and drags out. It has finally come to an end. So we have conceded that the Braves do stink right now. The roster doesn't stink, and I think that's where my clarification wasn't the most precise. But right now the Braves stink. It's not fun. It's not fun to be a Braves fan right now. It's not. But no Braves lost tonight. You know why they're not going to lose tonight? Well, they're not playing tonight. I am interested tonight, though, in this Eastern Conference Finals game. Let's hear what Brian Windhorst has to say live right now as he is covering the finals. A live look in right there as we do keep the TV on SportsCenter on ESPN. A live look in is Brian Windhorst of ESPN talking about the Eastern Conference Finals. He's covering the Western Conference Finals tonight, and I said the Eastern Conference game tonight. I did misspeak. The Western Conference game. What is it tonight? 5? Is that right? 4? No, 5 tonight. Timberwolves, Thunder, Oklahoma City favored by 8.5 tonight, going into game number 5. Going to take a break, come back. If you missed it earlier in the show, Grayson Mann of TigerNet joined me. It was an awesome conversation. I'll have that for you. DB on the stream, he says 600 was good. I thought Denny had a shot until the fueling issue. Didn't like seeing Ross Chastain win, but whatever. DB, I'm with you. I wasn't a fan of Chastain winning. He doesn't do it for me. I'm not a fan of his. I'm with you there. Denny and the fueling issue on the 600 Sunday, that was funny, man. I did think Amazon Prime, DB, did a really good job of showing exactly what went wrong if you watched. I know you did. But number one, the Prime broadcast was incredible. Number two, Prime did a really good job of showing exactly why they didn't get the gas can all the way in and engaged with the fuel tank. They did a really good job all the way around. It was a good race. I thought it was a really good race, man. And then the storyline with Byron, Denny kind of a lap down, kind of interfering a little bit with William Byron, and then Carson Hocevar, engine blowing. I thought there was a lot of storylines, a lot of drama. I wish every week was like that. I thought it was a really good race on Sunday. Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. That's next. fan, TigerNet.com, good friend of the show to discuss everything that's happening this weekend. If you are a Clemson fan and have a question for Grayson, like a couple of you Tolos have already done, get it in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's FANFONE. Grayson, how are you, man?
Well, my car's engine is fixed, Cole, so I'm doing splendid.
What'd you
man.
do
How are
to
you
it?
doing? So I brought it in yesterday for a routine service, and they walked out. They're like, "Hey, something's wrong with the engine. We're just gonna check it out real quick." And then they're like, "Oh, the thermostat in it is blown, and your car could have overheated in the wrong situation." So I was like, "All right, I guess we're leaving this thing here overnight." And so we're
is that
running with a nice little rental?
Yeah.
And just got it back today.
Is that one of those things like where you go in for your oil change and they find like 8 other problems, or is like a thermostat of that? I mean, I guess maybe the Tolos out there can tell. Maybe a thermostat's pretty valuable to have, right?
You know, I'm not a mechanic buff, Cole, and it may be the case, and I'm just gullible over there sitting on my computer like, oh no, but
yeah.
If they tell me something's wrong with the car, I'll certainly believe them over me because they know what they're doing, but
yeah,
it's just good to have it fixed.
You go in for an oil change and they tell you, hey, you need 6 new tires, right? Okay,
that's what
whatever.
I thought. I'm like, hey,
right?
I don't think there's 6 tires on my car.
Whatever, but yeah, go ahead and do it. You still, I've seen some fun. Hey, Grayson, show programming note question for you. When I'm solo, as I am this week, and I answer the phone call, you can't screen a call live over the air. So I've picked my favorite movie and my favorite scene out of my favorite movie to play the audio while I grab the phone call. Is this appropriate, or can you think of a better movie scene / sounder / sound effect that I should play on air whenever I go to grab the phone call? Here's mine.
I knew exactly what it is the second you started it.
It's a good one, right?
That's good. That's good.
You like that? I mean, that one's hard to beat, right? Can you think of a better one?
Good.
I mean, that gives me like 15 seconds to grab the phone.
That's pretty good, and it gets you pumped up a little bit too. It's from a good movie, so
Good
that's
movie.
all you can ask for.
Really good movie. Really good stuff. Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, joins me right here on the Fan Upstate. Clemson baseball regionals. Let's go to the text line. I also have a couple on the stream as well, Grayson. I want to let our Tolos out there let their voice be heard. Had a good text come in about 43 minutes ago, and we discussed it, and then we decided that we would ask you your opinion as well, Grayson. But the text read, if you are Coach Bakich this weekend, who do you throw against Upstate on Friday, Canuck or Titsworth? We had the discussion. What say you, Grayson?
You know, it's an interesting discussion because I don't think USC Upstate's your typical 4 seed because there has been a history between these two ball clubs. I believe they got the best of them in a midweek last year. And so there's some familiarity between these two programs. And as well with this ball club that you got on Friday night, they beat NC State. They run-ruled them. And so there's a little bit of an edge to this one. It's kind of similar to softball, where you got Kentucky and Upstate coming in. So it's almost like deja vu. But I think right now I'd be leaning towards maybe Titsworth on Friday night and seeing if you can save Canuck for potentially Kentucky or West Virginia. But also at that same time, is Titsworth, what he's shown in the last couple months, is that necessarily sustainable for the postseason? Do you try to just throw Canuck out there, get the win, and just get to that evening game on Saturday and not put yourself in a hole early, potentially rolling the dice? So I definitely see both sides of it, Cole. Personally, I try to save your ace for a tougher opponent, but I do believe Upstate has some challenges that they could present to Clemson.
So you're okay taking that risk, right? I mean,
I think that I would probably expect Canuck to go just because I think in Bakich's mind, it's let's just get the win and figure out the rest later. Yeah. Because you run that risk of putting yourself in a hole, and I think this group for Clemson maybe doesn't have the stuff to go potentially 4 games into a regional. Because if you get to that final spot, and we've seen what happened in a 3-game sample size in the ACC tournament, Cole, where you have Canuck, then Titsworth, then Bell, and there's a little bit of a sequential rotation there. You found some stuff that worked in Durham, but maybe mixing that up, throwing it off a little bit. I think there's pros and cons to both. I think with this pitching staff in particular, there's a massive risk, but there's also a massive reward that comes with it.
And I think that's well said. I think the massive again, I don't know if Eric Bakich is ballsy enough to do it. I think the massive reward is bigger than the massive risk. And because of what you just said you don't know if Clemson has the depth to go in a long weekend, a couple of games going to extra innings, right? Like, I think it's ballsy, but I think I take the risk. Like, you want to be able to have Canuck for a good West Virginia team or a good, Kentucky team. Do you think Eric Bakich will, if you had to put money on it, you think he'll throw out Canuck, or is there any suggestion, anything you've heard that might lead you otherwise?
Well, I'll take a statement from Monday where they had the selection show, and immediately before the players were sent out, I'm sure a lot of them were getting ready to go out for Memorial Day, have the day off, just sort of experience that. And before everyone was released from the room after they were revealed the bracket in the field, he said, we're going to just focus on USC Upstate. Any of your friends that you talk to, any media, anybody, it's just focused on this one game. So from that standpoint, it makes me think, okay, if we're focused on this one game here, changing yourself in the mind of Bakich, then in that point, you're probably thinking that Canucks the thought process there, and that's the guy you're going to roll out there on Friday. I do think, though, and Cole, this is just hypothetically speaking, let's say Titsworth starts. He gives you 5-6 good innings, maybe even 4.5. Just gets you to that point where you feel comfortable and you're able to save your ace potentially for a Saturday game against a really good West Virginia team or a Kentucky group that's had some upsets and has a history of playing well to competition. I could see it going both ways, right from that frame of mind where Bakich is talking about, okay, we're singularly focused on this game. We'll worry about the rest later.
Yeah.
That makes me inclined to believe that they're going to roll Canuck, but I do think that there's been a discussion, and I think there's an intense conversation of weighing out the pros and cons of saying, all right, here's the risk, but also, as you pointed to, there's a massive reward to being able to save Canuck for Saturday and potentially even a doubleheader on Sunday. There's just a lot of factors within this regional with this pitching staff that you have to account for.
I think that's a great conversation, but big picture wise, Eric Bakich been in the program now for a few years. Is it concerning? Is it a bad thing that we're having this conversation? Like, shouldn't Clemson have I'm not saying they should have two Canucks, but shouldn't you have a guy that you can throw out there against USC Upstate and not have to throw Canuck?
I do think there are some injuries that have plagued this pitching staff, particularly with Ethan Darden, who got hurt in the middle of the year. Haven't been able to roll him out. He was your Saturday starter. In that case, if we were having this conversation and injuries weren't a thing, let's say we can turn the sliders off and Clemson's perfectly healthy. They've got Luke Mueller and they've got Ethan Darden able to throw out there, who was going to be that three-man rotation. Mueller, they wanted to be that Sunday guy. And so I think for this group in that situation there, you got a hand tied behind your back already just due to unfortunate circumstances for this team. Now, I do believe there is concern there, but there are also pitchers that are playing in situations that have been midweek guys that have been called up to be the weekend players. There's a lot of people doing a lot of different things that necessarily, I think probably before the season started, you didn't imagine Titsworth being a guy that you have to rely on for 5-6 innings. You probably pictured him as a closer, someone that can relieve, someone that can come in and play the late game situation. Didn't necessarily picture him starting on the mound for a Friday regional against USC Upstate. So there are circumstances that play into this, but at the same time, it is that depth that you just sort of have to continue to build. We've seen in other sports where you got to really just find different ways. We saw it with Georgia. You lost a couple left tackles and you weren't able to beat Notre Dame and run the football well with a backup quarterback. And so there's just different sports play. I know it's a different example. We're talking in May about football, but it's been depth that we've seen in the last couple of years that have won titles. And that's going to be an issue for Clemson, regardless of how long this season continues for.
We're talking to Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, right here on the Fan Upstate. Grayson, JD asked earlier, and I'm trying to find it right now on the stream, if you're Clemson and you do take care of business against Upstate on Friday, who would you rather face on Saturday in that first matchup that you have, or whenever that first matchup would be, Kentucky or West Virginia?
It's interesting because I do believe West Virginia is probably on paper the better ball club, but I do believe Kentucky's got more quality wins, which you look at their record on paper and you go, okay, why is this team it's hanging around? I mean, they're 28-23, but they've had some big wins, or 29-24, excuse me. They've had some big wins. They've beaten Auburn. They've beaten Georgia. You run rule Louisville, a team that Clemson played earlier in the year. You beat Tennessee, and I think in that sample size, in this regional setting, you just need to have a couple good days. And so Kentucky's certainly capable of that. And they've had more impressive wins than West Virginia, which also leads into a different conversation of how the the bracket's been structured more heavily favored towards the SEC. I mean, you just got to give credence to the better teams are in that conference, and that's just kind of how reality is at this point. I think if you're a Clemson fan, and it's going to really largely depend on pitching, I think, and it depends on who's getting thrown out there on Friday night. Let's say it's Canuck and you take care of business against USC Upstate and you go into it with a clean slate. I think I'd probably want to face West Virginia just because of the arsenal of talent that's going to be laid out there. I would be a little bit more worried about Kentucky sort of finding a stride and a spark. So I think that you probably want to face West Virginia, but Kentucky would worry me more of a team that's a little more unpredictable.
Yeah,
in that sense.
No, I'm with you there. What were your thoughts? I don't know if you saw a lot of it or not, but I saw some of it on Twitter Monday when the regionals were announced, Grayson, of Clemson fans upset that they thought that this was another tough draw. Your thoughts on that?
You know, I don't see a 2-seed Tennessee in there, so I think Clemson fans probably are a little bit happier. But I think it just at this point, you're sort of seated on the back end of the national seeding of the top 16, so you're going to expect a naturally tougher draw. I think the tougher draw of the mix was Coastal Carolina, who I really felt like was deserving of a national seed. I know that within the Sun Belt, you're playing within a different conference. The schedule's not as difficult. You're not playing as hard midweeks, except you did take care of Clemson twice, and Clemson ends up being ranked ahead of you. It's just sort of how the things fall apart in that sense. So I think in terms of my first reaction was, man, this isn't a tough draw. That wasn't where like, oh, Clemson gets hosed in this situation. It's a matter of we're thinking about rotation. We're thinking about, okay, this is a familiar group. Kentucky and West Virginia, you got to do some research on that front. I do think Clemson got a fair draw, but I don't know how fair goes depending on who you ask. You're the 11th overall seed. You're definitely not going to get as much as a break as maybe on the front end where you're 8-7-6. Probably had that opportunity there on the doorstep if you had taken care of business against North Carolina. We know how that went. They've washed that game. And so potentially a national seed was on the conversation if Clemson had won the ACC. You're an 11 seed, and so that's just sort of how the cookie crumbles.
What about the North Carolina game, the championship game, Grayson? Clemson just not really competitive, a lopsided result for the Tigers. Does that concern you, or do you look at it as, you know what, you played some good games, you beat some good teams in the ACC championship, and you can completely learn from that bad loss against the Tar Heels?
Well, it's crazy how the conversation has changed in the last few weeks, where I think you and I were in Diesel were sitting here a few weeks ago before Durham, and we're talking about where is Clemson going to travel to for the regional, thinking, where is this team, where is this headed after that series loss to Duke? And the ACC championship or the ACC tournament, however you want to frame it, I think Clemson got what they came for, which was pick up a couple more wins and show that Pittsburgh series wasn't a fluke, because you and I had that conversation about competition and seeing, well, it is Pittsburgh sort of in the middle of the pack, probably towards the bottom of the ACC. Is that necessarily the wins we want to be praising Clemson for? And you go out there and you beat Virginia Tech, you take care of business against an NC State team in a thrilling game. That's one of the better baseball games I've watched in quite some time. And then you really, I think, put out a decisive victory against Georgia Tech. Really unfortunate situation for them. That reaction, I don't know if you've seen it, Cole. I know this is a little off topic, but there's a clip of a guy to the right of Georgia Tech, like at the center, when they're revealing where they were going. And one guy's clapping and he looks over and everyone's pissed. And he's like, oh, got to change it up a little bit.
I have not seen that.
Oh, I got to send that to you.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think Clemson got what they came for. And I think had they lost to Virginia Tech, maybe they're a little bit lower. Maybe they're creeping on the fence of a host seed. So you got what you came for. And then I think rotation-wise, and this is going to just be a concern of their overall postseason ceiling, is you get to that fourth day of that rotation, whether it's B.J. Bailey, you throw out Dvorsky for a little bit, you can just start to see the cracks in the armor, especially if the offense isn't really having the stuff. And they really did, to their credit, in that ACC tournament run. And so I think they just ran out of gas, and that depth is going to be a concern. And that's what you try to avoid in the next couple rounds, whether that's the regional, super regional, is getting to that lower tier echelon of this pitching staff where you're having to throw guys like them out. And the offense really has to play perfect at that point. And they really haven't been. It's been a kind of an inconsistent run. But if you can get that mix from Virginia Tech to Georgia Tech and just try to squeeze that together, I do think this is a team that has a good chance to make a run.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Texter from the 978 says, question for Grayson. What are some of your thoughts when looking at Upstate's lineup? Spartans have a big bat in the heart of the order with Johnny Sweeney. That comes from a texter, Grayson. You have an answer or a comment on that?
Yeah, we talked to Bakic about that. Said this is a really powerful lineup, and Bakic had referenced that familiarity and saying that also could lay some credence to this conversation about who you're going to pitch out there, because there is a lot of respect for this USC Upstate ball club from Bakic. Had nothing but great things to say about it, especially given the points that we've laid out here, is that you might sit there going, this isn't just a typical 4 seed. And I really believe that. I think that's probably where fans are probably thinking maybe they're a little bit irked about the draw, because if you look at that overall picture, this is a good team, and it's a team with a lot of power. We've seen that up close. We've seen that in Doug Kingsmore even last year. I know that the result in Floor Field this year was a little bit different. But to answer the Texas question, I do think that that's going to lead more to that conversation of, okay, who do we lie out here? Does it Titsworth? Is it Canuck? You start to lean more to Canuck when those points are being made, and you just want to try to get that win and try to see if you can make this a 3-game and 4-game instead of trying to drag it out unnecessarily for this group.
Grayson Mann has kindly agreed to stay with us one more segment. Before we run, one last question for you in this segment, Grayson, before we run to a break, and we'll continue the Clemson conversation for one more segment after this commercial break. But when you look at what Clemson softball and John Rittman did, obviously a tough way for their season to come to an end. I thought after that Thursday night win, late, almost midnight, I thought, man, this team might, put it out in 2 games and go ahead and punch their ticket. But a tough way to lose those next 2 against a really good Texas team. But overall, a good season for John Rittman, a really good season.
I would even use the word remarkable. You were really, with runners on 3rd and 2nd and no outs, you're really just probably a ball in play from clinching a trip to Oklahoma City, and we're having a completely different conversation today. Just a really interesting group to watch all year. I think in years past, a lot of it was, okay, when is Valerie Cagle? When is Mackenzie Clark? When some of those really program icons, when are they going to make the play? And it really felt like if there was a word to describe this group, it was collaborative. And so there was different players making plays. You had the Marion Collins walk-off home run. You had Kylie Johnson winning against Florida State, that 2-run homer to take the lead up in the Northeast in Brighton. So there's just so many different examples that we could throw out here. But what a season, what a coaching effort from this group, especially with how they started and how this season was, I think, framed as a retooling of how is this group going to necessarily bounce back from losing so many people that were program icons, program foundations, and they've really etched themselves into a situation where the last time they were in the Supers, a lot of them probably count them out against a really powerhouse in Oklahoma. You're a couple plays away from beating Texas, and you could say that for both games 2 and 3. So remarkable effort from this group, and I would expect them to be back in that position, perhaps in Oklahoma City next year with the talent they're bringing in and the freshman talent that's only going to get better.
I lied to you. One more kind of a follow-up to that. Do you find, I know I do that sometimes. Do you find in your coverage and interaction with fans, do you find a growing sense of the Clemson fan base that's not originally a softball fan base? Do you find that Clemson softball fan base starting to get a little more momentum and maybe grow a little bit past what it normally is?
All right, just take a look at the response we got from our live stories on TigerNet.com over the course of that series. Was just the overall enthusiasm that continues to be poured into this program, and just a group that it's nothing but positive vibes. It sounds so cliche and catchy, but that's just sort of how the program vibes. And there was a clip that really resonated with me. It's the regional. They're playing Kentucky. It's really tight. Clemson hadn't pulled away quite yet. And if you just look over to your right ever so slightly, you see Maddie Moore just sort of dancing in the outfield, having a good time, and the fans really responding to that. There's just a really, I think, symbiotic relationship between the fans and this program right now that have really, I think, just boosted not only the numbers for it, the attention, but just when you continue to see the success that they've been able to pull off despite some of the narratives we built to begin the season. It's just been a real satisfying watch, I think, for this fan base. They're really eager to see where this group goes.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com is going to stick with us through this break and finish hour number 2 strong with Clemson conversation. More to come right here on the Fan Upstate.
You're listening to the underground of sports talk radio, where